Good afternoon and happy Sabbath. For those of you listening online, welcome back to our afternoon service. We have a special guest, Pastor Lloyd Grubb, here with us. So before we get started, we'd just like to have a word of prayer. Yeah, you turn it off. Okay. Let us pray. Dear kind and Heavenly Father, I thank you, dear Lord, once again for the blessings of your Sabbath, for the blessings of the fellowship and the lunch. Now, as we're about to enter to our afternoon service, I ask that you bless us, bless the speaker, prepare our hearts and minds for the message we're about to receive. This I ask in your Son's name. Amen. We said we're going to have a song. I'm not sure what we're singing.
Somebody sing the song.
51, 51.
Good afternoon, church. Let us turn to hymn number 537. Hymn number 537. He leadeth me, hymn number 537. He leadeth me, O blessed thought, O words with heavenly comfort fraught. Whate'er I do, where'er I be, still 'tis God's hand that leadeth me. He leadeth me by his own hand, he leadeth me. His faithful follower I would be, for by his hand he leadeth me. Sometimes mid scenes of deepest gloom, sometimes where Eden's bowers bloom, by water still or troubled sea, still 'tis his hand that leadeth me. He leadeth me by his own hand, he leadeth me. His faithful follower I would be, for by his hand he leadeth me. Lord, I would clasp my hand in thine, nor ever murmur, nor repine, content whatever lot I see, since 'tis my God that leadeth me. He leadeth me by his own hand, he leadeth me. His faithful follower I would be, for by his hand he leadeth me. And when my task on earth is done, when by thy grace the victory's won, e'en death's cold wave I will not flee, since God through Jordan leadeth me. He leadeth me by his own hand, he leadeth me. His faithful follower I would be, for by his hand he leadeth me.
Amen. All right, good afternoon again. I'm gonna do something a little bit different. hot up in there, right? Is that second fan in the second side on? Because the one, I know the one on the left is on, but I don't know if the one on the right here is on. Yeah, just turn it on to get some cool in there. Yeah. Oh, I was more thinking the heat. You know, heat affects that also. Yeah, that's what it's such as if you're trying to do that, you shouldn't use saunas and stuff. Yeah. so anyhow. No, just if you're trying to have kids, I'm talking about. After, you know, you already finished, so you can toast all you want. All right. It's a health message. That's the health nugget for the day. All right. So what I'm going to do something a little bit different right here, which is I'm going to touch to illustrate some of what I was talking about this morning. I want to touch back on the Sabbath school lesson. I want to show something in the Sabbath school lesson, which I find is a worthwhile discussion. So I just pull up the Ellen G. White thing because I'm going to do some search real quick with you. Yeah, so I wanted to touch some quick points. So I'm just going to pray and then we're going to go into it. So let's bow our heads for a prayer. Our Father who art in heaven, again, I pray your blessings as we have settled in again here this afternoon. I pray your Spirit may be upon us. May you guide us, dear Lord, into our discussions here. May you teach us your way, and whatever, dear Lord, is not according to your will, and may you reveal this to us for Christ's sake. Amen. So I wanted to touch on a few points from the Sabbath school lesson. I didn't say really much. I was just listening to the discussion. I'll review the lesson, and I think we needed a little bit more time. I just wish those who were here that morning, the one or two people who left, were going to be here. And I wanted to touch on, this is the 7th last plague, lesson 11, and it's March 9th through 15. And the lesson itself is good to discuss this thing about the 7 last plague. So the question is, if you know, if there's 7 last plagues, most of these are not the only plagues. The lesson author pointed out that throughout the Christian era, there's been plagues that has hit Europe and various different plagues. A plague is basically any type of, I guess, reoccurring major problem that is hitting society. So a good example of that is that we have a plague of opioid right now with the fentanyl and the drug overdose. That's a plague. It's not a plague in the general sense of a disease that people catch, but plagues can be like a disease or anything like that that's killing people. And as I say, you have to, people always say follow the money. I always say follow the dead bodies. Where there's a lot of dead bodies, you know that there's a problem. Does that make sense? Because somebody could be corrupt, they take bribes, but nobody dying. It's still bad. But it's worse when somebody take bribes and corrupt and then there's people dying from it. No, you have to do something with that. So I'm going to take some points of the lesson. I'm not going to read the whole thing through and through because you already studied it. Just a few points I want to note. If you note on page, the first page, which is page 84. Huh? Yeah, go get a book. It's Sabbath, right? Sabbath afternoon. Right, I just want to take some points because I want to illustrate. The point, I should tell you what the point I'm trying to illustrate. The point I'm trying to show here is that when the lesson orders and stuff, and in Adventism in general, when they talk about prophecy, they tend not to talk about America. And they have a kind of a skewed view on America. And this is dangerous. And why I think it's dangerous is because it doesn't prepare the people for what's happening, what has happened, to teach them for what has happened and what's to come. Because all the thing they talk about is the Catholic Church. And when they talk about America, they say in the end, certain things are going to happen. And they're saying at the 7 last plague. But again, as I say, if there's 7 last plagues, that indicate that there's plagues that happen up to that point. And we need to be aware of what's going on. So there's some things I want to share from Ellen G. White, writing from the Bible, just to illustrate these points. Go ahead, please.
A few weeks ago, I was surprised with what you're saying. A few weeks ago, when they were talking about the lamb-like beast, I was surprised they mentioned America, and they even spoke about the Pope
Right.
in the bowls where they did. So I agree with you 100%.
Yeah, and even that lesson, I'm going to show one or two things here with that lesson, right? Because what I want to show is it's by not talking about the sins, you're not talking to other people what is it that need to be careful of, what do you need to be aware of. So on the first Sabbath, since you're back, it's in the second paragraph that starts with Revelation 15 opens. Towards the end of that paragraph, it says, as they stand something resembling a sea of glass and singing the song of Moses and the Lamb, all images reminiscence of Hebrews on the shore of the Red Sea, celebrating God's victory over the Egyptian. So first point there, was the victory of God's people over the Egyptian, was it a spiritual warfare or was it a physical and spiritual warfare?
Physical, actual. The Egyptians were pursuing them,
Right.
and they were actually trying to kill them.
All right.
And so it was actually,
So, all right, so they stand in a sea of glass, right? And there's what's in the sea. They're standing inside the bank. They're looking in the water. What's in the water? All right. So now we come to the end of time, and they're singing song, and they stand in the sea and glass in heaven. But what just happened on earth? Which is linked to the seven last plague.
That's the hail and the earthquake and all that.
Death and destruction everywhere, right? So what I want to show is that there's a constant trying to not talk about what's going to happen. The physical is just they want to keep it spiritual because they don't want to admit what's going to happen. I want to show from energy right here for the Bible is there. So the first thing I want to go to before I go on to too much further to the next point I wanted to show. If you read Revelation chapter 13, and verse 11. So notice there it says, I'll make it get there because it's probably not that clear on the board, but I just want to use this. So
13:11.
yeah, 13:11. What is he sending it for? Oh no, for you. I thought it was something for me. Right. So look at, look at 13:11 with me. Somebody could just read that for me, please.
And I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had two horns like a lamb, and he spake as a dragon.
All right, so notice here, this entity, right, had two horns like a lamb.
Yes.
Is it a lamb-like beast, or is it two horns like a lamb?
Two horns like a lamb.
So notice last week in the lesson, the author constantly tried to
Say
say
lamb-like beast.
lamb-like beast. And that's what Adventists teach.
Yes.
Adventists
a lot
normally
of people
teaches
say
a
that,
lamb-like
yeah.
beast.
Yeah.
Now, for a few, now let me ask you this. Why is the horns like a lamb? What is it about the horns that make them like a lamb? The horn. So horn represent the two powers in the United States.
Right.
Horn always
Yeah.
represent a power on an
Oh, yeah.
entity. It's a power of an animal, right? So why is it that the two horns are like a lamb?
Because
What is about the two horns that makes them like a lamb? So you're not fearful of them, right? So the two horns, they're not scary horns, right? Okay, but what are these two horns?
the pillars of America, on which America is built on, freedom of religion and government by the people, republicanism.
Republicanism and Protestantism,
Protestantism.
right? So one represent the power of the church and represent power of the state. The state and the church are separate, but they're also very docile. They look very docile. One represent Jesus, one represent democracy, vote, and all that. So the horns are like lamb, but the beast is not a lamb-like beast,
No.
right? It's a wild animal in all, say it's a secular system and government. But the two horns are like a lamb. Now notice now, it says two horns like a lamb, but what does it says here? Does it What does it say next? How does it end that verse?
11 says, and he spake as
that
a
word
dragon.
spake, is it past tense, future, present?
Spake is
Spake is past tense. When Adventists interpret this, they normally say it's in the future. It's only at the national son-in-law America will speak as a dragon. But in itself, it is an error. Why is it a major error and it's not something to be lightly looked upon? In essence, what they're saying is that when America did slavery as a legal vote, because Ellen G. White said, speaking of the nation, it's his legislation. Right? The nature speak from its whatever law it passed. So when America did slavery, was that speaking as a dragon? They would say no, because it's only going to be when the national son-in-law. So that they're basically removing the wickedness of slavery and say America never spoke as a dragon. You see the problem there? It's an inherent prejudice that they have when they teach Revelation. The Trail of Tears, when they did this to the Native Americans, was that speaking as a dragon? Right. About Jim Crow law. Right. About the war and drugs. Right. To destroy black communities. But now if you go to, say, white theologian, they say not until the future. America never spoke like a dragon. So instead of they call it a beast with lamb-like horns, but you can't stop there. You have to say, but spake as a dragon. They say it's a lamb-like beast. And they ignore that last
the other
statement.
part.
They don't explain that part. What does it mean, spake? Because spake is not present or future.
tense.
It's past tense. And if you read Ellen G. White, like the book Early Writings, she makes it very clear, America is Babylon, right? Because it's when America did slavery, it is Babylon. So that's one of the points I wanted to show here. Go ahead.
So this morning, that's what I was saying. And a lot of the stuff that has happened and that we're looking at in the quarterly, they make it seem as if it's something
It's
that
still
will happen
future.
or still coming. But it's happened that when I was reading it, I said, this has gone on now and has gone on in the past.
Right. So then now.
Sorry, gone on now. It's gone on in the past.
So then if you say 7 last plagues, and you say everything is going to happen in the future, you're automatically saying anything that's going on now is not because of our sins.
Right.
You see why it's so important? So you're going to say if there's a disaster, you can't say, you're going to say, oh no, we don't know why it's happening.
That's just
because
climate change.
No plague is going to hit America until America does a national son-in-law.
Son-in-law, right.
So you ignore the current evils of the country and you put it off to the future while stuff is happening that's happening. So let's see if I found it here real quick. No, I found it, so I'll get back to this, what I'm doing here. I'll come back. Notice, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Malcolm X says that the
The chickens.
chickens have come home to roost.
So they've been doing things all
Exactly, things that they've done. And even as a Muslim, he's able to see that the things that you've done in the past is affecting who you are now and how it
along.
will
There are
affect
consequences.
you in the future.
Right. So if you, I'm going to show you this reading here real quickly. If I could control this. I'm going to show you one more thing, and I want to show you this reading here. So in this one here, notice here in the beginning here, in the middle here, because I want to go back to that statement I read in Sabbath's lesson. And in verse 15. So look at verse 15, or Revelation 13:15. So remember, we're talking about America, right? This is now, I believe this is still future. This part of the prophecy is future, but the description of the beast is real. That's been America. It passed rules against its own constitution. Yes. And that's, so somebody said, what do you mean the legislation? What I understand is legislation is when America has two horns like a lamb, so the church and the state will do something against what they profess. The one believe in Jesus, one believe in democracy and constitution, they'll go against the constitution. So notice here now in verse 15. Again, somebody read that verse 15 for me again. And he, yeah.
And he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause that as many as will not worship the image of the beast should be killed.
All right, so remember the lesson I was dealing with Egypt, right? They're starting to see, right? What did the Egyptian fear? Why was he going after? Why was he going after them? What was he planning to do?
The economy would have been affected.
So what was he? He wanted to enslave them.
Right, he wanted to keep them enslaved.
But when he was going at them with all that fury, what was he going to do?
He was going to destroy them. He
Wh-
was like, they
why?
were leaving, and he wasn't going to get them back, so that was going to be the end of him.
Why? What had just happened to Pharaoh?
He lost his son. Like, I mean, of all the plagues that had gone, that one had his home, his firstborn son. He just lost him. And right now, it's like somebody with nothing to lose.
Right. And I'm going to show some text to show that says it's the same scenario in the end. Because remember, they're saying it's a spiritual battle, but it's going to be blood. It's going to be bloodshed. But that's what they don't want to talk about. They just want to talk about the spiritual nature of it, right? But it's real fights going on, and it's a fight over the lives of people. So notice here that should be killed. Who is going to cause this rule? What nation? Huh? Which nation are we talking about that's going to push this rule? To kill. It's the United States. See the problem there? This is not, so they're saying it's going to be a spiritual battle. No. This death is going to be, they're going to try to kill God's people. Right? So, and that's what Pharaoh's intention was to destroy at that time because his son and all his generals and everybody lost their firstborn. It's not just Pharaoh lost his firstborn. Everybody lost their firstborn. Even the animals die. So they'll be like, there shall be blood. And that was what it is. So notice here again, and he caused it all both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond to receive the mark of their right hand and their forehead, and that no man might bar sell. Now here's another important mark, because people say all this is future. But remember now, which country is the only and main country on earth to do embargoes, financial embargoes?
United States.
It's the United States. But it's not just America that does embargo against foreign nation. Notice every time in America somebody come out and say something racist, people call for the job them to be fired. Right. It's part of the American culture that if they disagree with you, they want you fired. They want you not to be able to eat. They're going to destroy you financially. It's part of our culture. There's no other country I've seen that they go after you so heavily. Right, because again, you could be like, I'm not for homosexuality. Could I get an exemption so I'd have to marry homosexuals? No. You'd have married homosexual. It don't matter who's in charge. Right. When Obama was in power, if you didn't marry a homosexual, you lost your job. Yeah. And when it's flipped to the other side, if you anti-whatever, you lose your job. The aim is conservative, liberal, Democrat, Republican. They want you to lose your job. They want to destroy you. I can't say, hey, look, I don't want to make no cake. I'll make any cake, but no cake for this. No, I need to destroy. I need to sue you so you lose your business.
And even to the point where go down to Johnny. Johnny has an agreement. Johnny don't care. You go to him, he'll make any cake for money. But they're like, no, we want you to make the cake.
You to make the cake. I'm like, but Johnny's as good as me. Go give your business to Johnny. No, we're going to sue you and destroy you because we need you to make the cake. That's basically, so when I read this and somebody say, oh no, Lord, this is all just going to happen just at the end. America's just going to switch at the end. I'm like, what are you talking about? This is how America does business. If you say, we just want to do trade, we don't do no trade agreement with you, we just want to be free and do trade. No. You either sign with us or we destroy you. We cut you off, we block you, you can't get your product to market, and we destroy you. Why is somebody going to say, no, that's all in the future? Because what the answer is, they don't want to admit the fact that this is how their country behave, and this is how their people behave. This is something that's developed in America as a culture. If you don't agree with us, we want to destroy you.
And they tighten it. And no matter if the people in your country are dying. So they did that for 60 years to Cuba, another 60 years
That's
to
what
North
I thought
Korea,
about Cuba, North Korea.
And now they're going to do it to Venezuela.
Iran. Venezuela.
Like, I've not heard.
Libya.
I've read
Russia.
Stuff from Fox News. What is the justification in tightening news from this country, knowing that, look at King Jong-un. In fact, his
not
neck is
going
out
to
in here.
affect him. He's the last person it's going to affect.
Are you got the generals around him? Everybody's slim. He's the only person fat. all the foods he wants. Everybody around him slim. I'm thinking even the generals are skinny.
Yes.
And he fat, and you gonna tighten the noose. Who's gonna die? And how do you go to a regular American, white or black, and say, you think it's right what you're doing?
They don't see it.
How you go starve those people knowing that King Jamon is not gonna be starved? How do you justify that? Yes, please.
The thing is, but if you give erroneous information to people on a continual basis, and that's why I remember when that guy, Warbang, the one that it was Warmbier.
Oh, yes.
And because he tore down a propaganda poster for the communists, he tried to take it. And you know what? But that's the communists, and that's what this seems like this country wants the news to only come in a one-sided way. So you know what? We don't want to tell you the truth. We don't care what the facts are. This is what we want. I personally, and I'm going to say this, personally, I look at Fox News and I have to change the channel because I am so, I try to look everything across the board, but after about 5 or 10 minutes, I can't take the lies that come from Fox News. It is like a propaganda station.
It's pure propaganda.
Pure propaganda. Even when other stations are covering breaking events, they're just talking about nonsense.
They are going to investigate Hillary Clinton's emails.
Oh yes, they still like Hillary Clinton's emails is and that's what they were still talking about. Invest in Hillary Clinton's emails when Hillary Clinton is up in Chappaqua playing with her granddaughter, going wee, and you know they tried to indict her with the Benghazi for over 4 years. Clinton, we found nothing wrong with where we have a president in office, 2 years, numerous indictments, and because he says it's a witch hunt, it's a lie, but yet everybody else around you was falling. A man is known by the friends he keeps. If everybody around me was going to jail, y'all be one, the pastor going to jail.
It's true.
That's good.
Yes.
I was just going to say, too, with the embargoes, it shows how much United States is a beast, because not only are they willing to starve the people, because the leaders aren't going to feel the effect. They're not going to feel the brunt of it. But they're willing to starve the people, but they're willing to do that with the hopes that the people will revolt against the leader. And then once the revolt happens and the government gets overthrown, there's a lot of people who are going to be dead.
A lot of dead people.
There's a lot of, because no world leader or no leader of a country is going to watch the people revolt and not do anything.
Is it?
So either way, it's this country setting up the situation or circumstances in another country for the people to suffer.
Because there's going to be a lot of dead bodies when it's all said and done. So that's what you're saying. You're saying the American people want a lot of dead bodies in North Korea, and they're creating other people who are going to die. And I'm like, why do the American people want that? I don't understand. Now, notice here, I'm going to read, before I move to the next point I wanted to show you now. This is now from the book Early Writings. This was written 1882. So this is important for the date stamp, because people say, it is in the future. All of this is in the future. But notice here, Ellen G. White described the results of slavery, right? And notice here, I'll take it from, I think, these professed Christians. I don't know if I need to take it higher. Yeah, I'm going to read this because this is important. So this is an important reading to read. I'm going to take it 3 paragraphs here. So I'll take it from Hall Evan Bill Hole. So this is talking about slavery. So this written shortly after the end of slavery. All heaven behold with indignation, human beings, the workmanship of God, reduced by their fellow men to the lowest depths of degradation and placed on a level with brute creation, profess followers of that dear Savior, whose compassion was even moved at the sight of human woe, heartily engage in this erroneous and grievous sin, and deal in slaves and souls of men. Now, that statement she makes, slaves and souls of men, is in Revelation 18. Human agonies carried from place to place and bought and sold. Angels have recorded it. It is written in the book. The tears of the pious bondmen and bondwomen, of fathers, mothers, and children, brothers and sisters, are all bottled up in heaven. God will restrain his anger but little longer. His wrath burns against this nation. What nation? United States. United States. This nation, and especially against the religious bodies that have sanctioned this terrible traffic and have themselves engaged in it. Now notice she doesn't separate the religious body and only talk about them. Notice in the Sabbath class I'll show you they only talk about the Protestants of the United States. They don't talk about this nation. But when she talks, she will use terms like this so-called Christian nation. She don't talk about the way they talk about it, right? So engage in it. Such injustice, such oppression, such suffering are looked upon with heartless indifference by many professed followers of the meek and lowly Jesus. And many of them can themselves inflict with hateful satisfaction all this indescribable agony, and yet they dare to worship God. It is solemn mockery. Satan exalts over it and reproaches Jesus and his angels with such inconsistency, saying, with hellish triumph, such are Christ's followers. These professed Christians read of the suffering of martyrs, and tears course down their cheeks. They wonder that men couldn't ever become so hardened as to practice such cruelty toward their fellow men. Yet these are those who think and speak thus are at the same time holding human beings in slavery. And this is not all. They sever the ties of nature and cruelly oppress their fellow men. In other words, they have to break up families to be able to continue slavery. They can inflict most inhumane torture with the same relentless cruelty manifested by papists and heathen towards Christ's followers. Notice she's not talking about papists at this point. She's comparing what the Christians in America are doing to slaves, similar to what papists were doing.
You know, it's interesting to see. That's what I wanted to see what year she wrote this. But in 1882, she has seen slavery from 1861 to 65, Civil War, Trail of Tears earlier in the 1840s. She see what the American government has done. And it's amazing now that you're pointing out that America is still in denial, especially the church, of the way it treats people of color, black, brown, Asian in this country, to a point where it's sort of reestablishing a hierarchy. It's even up to the latest scandal where you can buy your way. You're already privileged, but you could buy your way into a privileged school. But
and then say you work for it.
You work for it. I worked for it. I worked hard. I like beer. Don't you like beer?
So, notice here it says, the cries of the oppressed have reached unto heaven, and angels stand amazed at the untold agonizing suffering which men, forming in the image of his maker, cause his fellow men. Said the angel, the names of the oppressors are written in blood, crossed with stripes, and flooded with agonizing, burning tears of suffering. God's anger will not cease until he has caused this land of light, right, to drink the dregs of the cup of his fury, until he has rewarded Babylon double. Who is he called? She's calling Babylon here. Notice they will talk about, when the Bible says Babylon, they only refer to the papacy. They don't refer to America. But when she's writing, she says this land of light. This land that had some information. This land that William Miller preaching about, the second coming of Jesus Christ. This land of light. But when you hear them, it's almost like they never read these things. It's totally ignorant to them. They only talk about the papacy, but the papacy did most of its dirt back then. They're still doing dirt, but they don't talk about what America is doing right now, because they're trying to make it sound like the text says, will speak. They don't say the text says speak, because remember, this is 1882. This thing here is after slavery. What was coming after slavery? What happened? Jim Crow. It was the oppressed, the black people were still going to be oppressed. And she's saying, look, America has not changed. She said the sentiment that was there in the past is still there. And we see that's why they take all the jobs and ship it abroad. You know what I'm saying? Look, keep reading here. Notice it, I'll read again. It says, until he has rewarded Babylon double. Reward her even as she had rewarded you. Double unto her according to her works. In the cup that she have filled, fill double. Now, where did she get that from? Revelation 18. I'll read it for you in a second. But if you ask anybody that does prophecy teaching, they'll say that Revelation 18 only applies right at the end. But she applies it right there at 18 for 88. Right there 82. She applies it and says, that's what's going on here. After slavery. Notice here, again, I saw the slave masters, and they give the appendix, you can get some more clarification, will have to answer for the soul of his slaves who is kept in ignorance, and the sins of the slave will be visited upon the master. God cannot take to heaven the slaves who have been kept in ignorance and degradation, knowing nothing of God or the Bible, fearing nothing but his master's lash, and holding a lower position than the brutes. But he does the best thing for him that a compassionate God can do. He permits him to be as he has not been, while the master must endure the 7 last plague and then come up in the second resurrection and suffer the second and most awful death. Then the justice of God will be satisfied. What is she saying here? She's saying that the slave master will what? Will be resurrected at the second coming to face the 7 last plague. And then be resurrected a second time to face the hellfire. So she's saying 2 punishment coming for the slave masters. That's very specific. That's not just we're just talking about here, oh, well, it's all about the papacy. But everybody that does, and I know probably you're concerned about something, so go ahead.
It's just, when I look at what's going on now with Congress and the Senate, and the putting in of judges who take away the power of choice. And, you know, I'm pro-life. But yet, I cannot dictate to someone, this is what you must do. Because God gives me the power of choice. So I should pass that on to you. But they want to mandate that I'm going to dictate to you. So that means
they want to control you.
They want to control you.
You don't have to go to God. You go
right.
to them.
You come to me.
The papers, that's what the papers did.
Exactly. And now, so I see when individuals are saying, okay, we'll take a president who lacks morality.
That's why they took it. That's
as long as, exactly. Because you know what? We know he's out for his own interest. But we will accept him because
he ain't going to do the moral thing.
He's not going to do the right thing.
He ain't going to do the moral thing.
He has no conscience. And they knew that, where it's just like, yeah, look, I'm just trying to get paid. I don't care. Do what you want. If you ever had those kind of bosses, I don't care. Do what you want. As long as I get my 10 hours overtime, you guys come in there, make sure the work is done. I'll be back on Tuesday. What? And you do what you, and that kind of attitude, and they see that in him like, I don't care. Look, go nuclear, Mitch. Do it. But you know what? There's going to be a price. The chickens will come home to roost. Keep doing what you're doing. You'll have to pay.
Sorry. What you just said there is the point why I want to get to as I'm watching the time, that what happened is, as people looking at prophecy and they see things happening, they don't understand a lot of this is a punishment for the bad behavior. You see, because remember, God is not going to just cause stuff to happen for happening's sake. It's a response to ill behavior, because what happened, people are powerless. So when you have people who are powerless, God has to step in and say, I'm going to have to settle some scores here. But what they're teaching is that America didn't do nothing wrong. So when the punishment comes, people are like, why is the punishment? Why is the punishment?
Yeah, what do we do? We're innocent.
And I think what a lot of people are missing, an important point, is that when we talk about the beast with 2 horns like a lamb, we said earlier that one of those horns was Protestantism. Right. And then we have to remember that the horn that got Trump elected were these same Protestant people, the evangelicals, well, Catholics to some extent, but a lot of these other first-day churches. And it was because they turned a blind eye to his known deeds. This is before we got to the Stormy Daniels.
Yeah, we didn't know about that at
And
that point,
before we
right.
got to all of these, the collusion with Russia, before just his known deeds. But they were willing to listen to the false prophet. And because he was going to make them a promise, they were willing to throw their support behind him. And I think because a lot of people, because they fail to realize what kind of power the church has to sway government events, they think that it's only going to be in the end. Not seeing that all along the way we're going,
always
there's
the church,
because even it's the same religious people who helped to keep slavery in power. It's the same religious people who upheld the Native Americans nearly being exterminated. It's the same religious people who, at every single juncture, was there to vote and try to force the government's hand to do certain things. You saw during George W. Bush, is the same church who were clamoring for faith-based initiatives.
They were
And-
the ones that were anti-desegregating the schools.
Exactly.
Right.
So
Same ones that stood to block in Arkansas. The same ones.
Yes,
that
Arkansas. Yeah, it was the religious right.
But I wanted to ask, because I came across a blurb. They said the reason why Donald Trump is president now, I don't know if anyone saw, because Dr. James Dobson went to him and said, if you do what I want, I'll make you president.
I never.
Dr. James Dobson.
I believe that's
Focus on the
possible,
family.
Yeah, because he had switched. He had decided he's going to go straight politics.
Yeah. And
Right.
that's why even the guy, I used to listen to his show, The Lawyer,
Jay Sekulow.
Jay Sekulow. I even sent him money in the past because he used to do the freedom thing and to talk.
Yeah.
And, you know, even with the lies and the things that even Cohen said, I believe Cohen, because I would not stand, even as an officer, if someone was a criminal, I wouldn't say I'm going to lock arms with this criminal and I'm going to say, you know what, whatever he does, it's okay. You know, and that's what Jay Sekulow and the attorneys are saying. So then there must be some insider deal. As was said, that horn, they've locked it and said, you give us what we want and we got you.
Because that's
That's
what it is.
insider trading.
Actually, and I think I need to start bringing some clips and show. And I've been saying that over the church. I'm going to start showing some clips where the pastors are saying that, yes, he's not doing good otherwise, but he's giving us what we want. No, I have clips that they say that. That they said he's giving us what we want because he gave us that guy on the Supreme Court. The two, right. Yes.
That's what they list, the Supreme Court judges, the embassy in Jerusalem. And I'm like, how does that change the price of bread in this country? Like,
Well, but that's what it is, the Supreme Court, but especially to me, the embassy in Israel has nothing to do with anything but a religious. It's for the
Right.
religious people. It was not for. There's no business.
it's nothing for the country.
Yeah, it doesn't do anything business-wise for the country. So notice here again. So the two horns are two powers that makes. You cannot describe America. In other words, America is in view, not the one horn, the Protestantism. It's the two. So the Bible doesn't say there's this beast, but really we need to focus on Protestant America. The Bible says two horns seem lamb-like. They're like a lamb. They didn't say they are the lamb. Actually, last week lesson said it's the lamb. They're like Jesus. They look like Jesus. But the lesson said it's like a lamb, but when it speaks and open up the mouth with legislation, it's a dragon that is speaking. Okay.
Remember, you mentioned Colin. Colin? Who's Michael Colin?
He was Trump's personal lawyer.
Oh,
And he said at some of those meetings, he said Jay Sekulow was there telling him to
lie.
to Congress to protect the president.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you.
So I believe that they're protecting him.
Okay.
Because somehow they said, you give us what we want, we'll protect you.
But that's dangerous.
Very dangerous.
Monday, I want to just point something out again. All right, just to illustrate the point again. And the second paragraph, I'm going to read the last sentence in the second paragraph. Last two sentences, two long sentences. So notice here, the plagues on Egypt disclosed the hardness of Pharaoh's heart and showed the Egyptians the inability of their gods to protect them. Similarly, the last plague increasingly hardened the hearts of the worshippers of the sea beast and revealed the powerlessness of Babylon to protect them from divine judgment. So, who is Babylon? Who is the sea beast? So you know who is the sea beast? All right, so I'm going to show you something now with the sea beast. Let me get over here. Go down with me to Revelation 13, verse 1. 13:1. So Revelation 13:1, the same chapter, just verse 1. So the sea beast. So notice in Revelation 13, how many beasts are in there? Right. Right. So notice the focus is only on the sea beast. All right. But there's two beasts in Revelation. And the one that caused the death decree is not the first beast, it's the second beast. So notice here, Revelation 13, verse 1. Somebody read that for me there real quick, and I'm going to break it down with you.
And I stood up upon the sand of the sea, and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy.
All right, so this is normally described as the papacy. The Catholic Church has been described in symbols. So remember, Revelation is symbolic language. Sea represent normally a place that is very populated. If you read Revelation 75, just read it for me if you don't mind also. Just for our brain right here, so we just have it in our head. Revelation 7.
Revelation 7, actually 17:15.
15, sorry. Right.
Says, and he said unto me, the waters which thou sawest, where the horse sitteth, are peoples and multitudes and nations and towns.
Right, so there's different way to describe the papacy. It's described as a horse, it's described as a sea beast, but it sits where there's many people, nation, and tongue. So the place in the earth that we know that would be in Europe. The only other place that is similar to that would be in the Middle East. So anyhow, so let's break this down a little bit now. So I stood up on the sand of the sea, and I saw a beast rise up out of the sea, right? That means this rise up a place where it's very populated with many different people and language and tongue. As you know, the language part could describe many places in the world. Even China has many languages. But it has different nations, so China would not be the place. So the place that really fits this is Europe. Right, so notice I say Europe, not the papacy. Because normally in Adventism we describe that, and you don't find Ellen White doing that, making that mistake. I'm going to show you something that she never do that. We normally describe it as only the papacy. So notice here we have it's something about us that we always remove the secular part, the civil part. We only want to talk about the religious part. Right, just keep that in mind. So notice here it has 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon the horns 10 crowns. Now normally where do you put a crown? On a head. But notice here this beast has 7 heads but 10 crowns. What happened to the other 3 heads that the crowns are supposed to go on? You remember what happened to them? Right. So that tells you that they were plucked up to put in place the little horn. So these are talking about nations with secular government. So this beast cannot be the papacy. The papacy is the lead in the beast or one of the heads. Okay, I'm going to show you in a second why that is. But we normally interpret that as being just the papacy. Why? Because we don't want to say what. What is it that the Bible interpreters, especially of European descent, don't want to tell you? What is it that they're trying to hide? And nuance it is very important.
Well, I think because the reality of the history of this country, I think they want to hide the fact that America is still, sorry folks, that America is still a country that has discrimination, and they want to ignore the historical facts of discrimination of black, brown, and yellow people in this country.
Right. Because look, if you say it's the papacy, oh, it's just the church. But if you say the beast is more than the papacy, it's actually the Western European Empire, then it takes on a different connotation. But it's actually a better interpretation because it helps explain the history of the world. Yes. Does that make sense? Yes. So your country used to be ruled by what?
By Britain.
Britain. Is that one of the heads? Yes. You see, it's why do that? Why try to not have a conversation and you hide such gem of information and truth? Right? So this was breaking it again. So remember before, there was this story in Daniel 2 where he has a statue, right? The statue had how many toes? 10 toes. Those 10 toes represent what? The 10 Western European Empire. So normally in Adventism, when we explain, it's easy for us at that point to say 10 represent Western European Empire. The Elamite, the Burgundy, the Sueve, the Uri, okay. But somehow now we come to Revelation 13, we don't want to say Europe.
Well, actually,
Go ahead.
they don't want to say Europe. But it makes sense that it's Europe, and it has to be, because the Bible does not go against itself.
Right.
It's not going to change the message in Revelation that it gave in Daniel.
And Daniel, so you, as I say, you see they'll say 10 toes represent 10 division. But when we come to Revelation 13 now, we say, well, 3 of the divisions were plucked up, right? But we just said this beast is represent the papacy.
I think it depends on how you understand the papacy. Because if you think the papacy is just the
Okay.
the hierarchical Roman Catholic Church upon whom the head of
Right.
the bishops sit, then you're wrong. But if you think of the papacy as a civil authority,
And a,
that
and a
prop
religious authority.
right.
Both.
that there's a civil, the secular, the civil authorities with their powers that support and allow that system, that religious political system to function, then that's the proper understanding of the
It's
papacy.
a religious political entity.
Yes.
But it's also, it doesn't have its own army.
Right.
Right.
So it needs that civil part.
But
The
if you
Swiss
say the
Guard
civil
or
part, you
whatever.
have to start talking about now what happened in slavery with the colonies, with all of that. The papacy was the lead, but all Europe was involved in all of
Right, because it needs that system in order to carry out its work, because it doesn't have its own.
that. And that's why I
yeah.
said that's also, when you think about America, they want to talk about the Protestant churches, but the Protestant church don't write laws.
Right.
If the speaking of the nation is its legislation, the
then-
church doesn't write legislation, it's Congress who write legislation. So we're not talking about just the church, we're talking about America as a whole.
Right. Right.
And
Because
if you're talking about Europe, you're talking about Europe as a whole.
As a whole,
But there's one lead, the lead is the little horn. Sorry.
just a question for clarification. During the time of papal supremacy, the Pope countries did not go against did not go against another country unless you had the blessing of the Pope.
Right.
Because if you didn't, because it was taught that even though the king may have been royalty, the men who were learned were the religious men. The church were the educated men. And unless you had the blessing of the Pope,
Right.
you did not go against the nation, because he can easily call all the other nations
To come and beat you
to
up.
come to you.
Yeah. So notice here, the beast, so I'm going to read it again now. So I stood on the sea, and I saw a beast right up on the sea. So this is talking about the rise of the little horn. And he had 7 heads and 10 horns because he had plucked up 3 of the heads. Right?
Right.
But 10 horns is still there because the powers are still there. They were not removed. And upon his horn, 10 crowns, and upon his head, the name of blasphemy. So he still controlled the power that they had. And a good example for that, you look at Britain. Britain has 4 sections: Scotland, Ireland, Wales, and then Great Britain. But it's still, or I should say England, and then it's still one entity, but there's only one queen. But they all have parliaments, but they don't have no head. The head is the queen. Right? And even though Britain has a parliament, the head is still the queen.
Yeah.
She is still the king, the monarch. She still has that crown upon her head. What's interesting about Britain, I want to show you how powerful this prophecy is. Remember, the Bible says that they shall never unite.
Right.
Notice Britain has always been the group, the per entity that always break from the rest of the European entities. Remember in 16, why we get the 16-level Bible? It's because the king had a fight with,
right, exactly.
King James had a fight with
Yeah.
the papacy,
Yeah.
and they decided I'm going to break. Also we find that says, although Europe, although you have the European Union, some people say, but isn't the European Union destroy the prophecy that said they will never unite? But notice Britain was the one country that says we will not join our currency, we will not join. No, they didn't even join. Even when they were apart, they
Yeah, they
never
had their own
joined the
pound.
currency.
Right.
They always say, we'll trade with you guys, but we're independent.
Right.
Now Britain is saying we want to break from you
Totally.
We don't want
Brexit.
nothing to do. We're independent country, totally independent, cut all ties from Europe. It's always Britain. And why is that so important? Because that kind of proves the point I'm going to show in the next few verses, that when Britain always proved that it is the papacy is not the only entity that was there. The papacy was the most significant head, and it was one of the heads. Because later I want to show you where it says, and the wound, the head had a wound. It was the whole Europe that got a wound. It's just them little horn that became so powerful and was great. It got a wound. It didn't mean the rest of Europe was destroyed. Does that make sense? And I'll show you in a second. So notice here, Britain always splitting. So Britain, what's going on with Brexit is prophetic.
Right.
Because the Bible has said they will never join together. The only thing that's important to me is the country that put the Pope, that destroyed the last of the third of the three heads, was actually France. And France crowned the Pope and said, "You're the toughest guy," so to speak. In Europe, guess who arrested the Pope and gave him the wound?
Napoleon.
It was France.
It's France.
And notice the two countries that always wax significant in Europe is always France and England.
Yes.
So they come up and notice who's having a problem. Who was buddy first with Trump?
France.
It was Macron. And then Macron now pulled back and you have heard nothing.
Yep, nothing.
Because why? They're secular and they don't like the religious stance that America take. But they were the kingmaker that put America on the map also, because they were the one that supported American revolution against the British. Right, but they're the one that sent over the Statue of Liberty, but they're the one also that don't like, and that's going to come up in a second.
Exactly, but it shows that France, and with its secular nature, stood with America, but all of a sudden, America's changing its stance, so that's why France is withdrawing.
Right.
Because now,
France doesn't have a religious, never did.
Never did.
They always were pagan, extremely pagan.
Yep.
Okay, so notice here, I'm going to read this. It says here, in the same reading I'm reading, similarly, the last plague increasingly hardened the hearts of the worship of the sea beasts, revealed the powerlessness of the Babylon to protect them from divine judgment. So notice here, they focus on the sea beasts, because the Bible does say that Babylon or whatever, but remember, you always have to include America because Babylon has daughters. Normally you say, when you say the coalition of the willing, what countries are you talking about? What's the coalition? Willing. For all the war. Iraq. What is the coalition of willing?
England, France, Germany.
So it's Europe and America. I'll just say it fast. Europe and America. Well, you know how I know that? We just read it here. The two beasts that you found in Revelation 13, Europe and America. When it was time to attack Syria, Europe and America. When it's time to attack Libya, Europe and America. When it's time to do sanctions against Venezuela, Europe and America. They said the allies. But why the greatest ally? Because that's a fulfillment of the Bible prophecy. Bible prophecy say Europe and America. So you cannot just say the sea beast, because it's both. Let me finish reading this real quickly here. So notice here, the beast which I saw, verse 2, beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, and his feet was like unto a bear, and his mouth the mouth of a lion. And the dragon gave him his power, seat, and great authority. And I saw one of his head. So if you say verse 2 is only the papacy, that's where you run into problem. Because one of his head was wounded. Who do we say that head was? The Pope. Say the Pope. So if you say the whole beast is the Pope, go ahead.
The papacy is more than just the Roman Catholic system.
Right.
Because when the Pope went to jail, pretty much, when he was
By the
arrested
France,
and taken,
Yeah.
it was not just because he was the head of the church. It was also because they lost land. The papacy
He was
then
civil.
owned the whole middle of Europe,
Yeah.
and they also lost that land.
Right.
And not until 1929, when they did that Lateran Pact,
Yeah.
that they formed the Holy See, that they got that back. So that was part of the wound, that they had lost the civil part of the civil structure that
They still lost. They still
They
regained
lost
fully,
that,
right.
yeah.
There's a Vatican. But yeah, so when you say one of the head was wounded, you would say what got the wound? The wound is that head that was over Italy. Got a wound.
Yeah.
So what's happened to the rest of the beast?
it was still there.
It was still.
There. That's
It
why I
was
say
still there.
If you interpret it as just the whole beast is the papacy, and
No,
you said the
that was
wound-
just part.
one of the head got wounded, and you say, well, that head is the papacy got wounded, then what happened to the rest of the beast?
No.
It's
Right.
still functioning.
Right.
It's still doing it. And how do you know that? Now, this is the example to me how I know this. Because remember, when the pilgrims came to America,
Yes.
did they come fleeing from the Pope or from the King of England?
King of
The
England.
King of
King of
England.
England. Why would they flee the King of England?
Because of one, you had to follow his rule because he was autocracy, whatever they call that, the king, whatever it's a king. You have to
Wanted
follow what the
come
king.
make more money.
No.
I thought it was,
Why did they flee? You're on the right path.
but religious persecution because
They were being
they
persecuted
were
religiously.
persecuted. Yeah,
Why were they being persecuted religiously? Because the principle of the papacy was being carried out by the King of
by
England.
the King of England. Yes.
It's the same philosophy. It's the same beast. You see what I'm saying? It's one beast with multiple heads. He has a head, the main head. He has a main head,
I mean, I like that.
but the rest of the head does business the same way.
Exactly. But
Right. They're following the lead. It's just, I'm over here. I'm not taking orders per se from the paper, but I believe in what the papacy teaches.
but
So I carry it against my people. My people come fleeing, come to America to escape the tyranny, not of Rome. So if we teach it that it's only Rome and it's not a beast that was led up by Rome and given great authority, then it doesn't fit because you say, well, who were they fleeing from? They weren't fleeing from the church in Italy. They were fleeing from a church in England. Go ahead, please.
the question I asked him then, why is it, or how is it that America has allowed itself to go back into the same trap where the church and state has linked, and it is so obvious to see that if you have a Supreme Court, well, I know when I read on the American Constitution and when they were writing it, they were even considering laws on banning Catholics.
No, there were actually laws in some of the states.
Some of the states in banning Catholicism,
Because they didn't want to repeat
the same thing.
thing of Europe.
Right.
And that's why France was so supportive. Because it's that freedom that you could get in America that
Right.
you was not getting in Europe. So that's why I'm saying it's important to note one of the head was wounded. And as that head was wounded, that happened. As that happened, the people were still having problems with, because remember the Bible was translated by the King of England, 1611 or somewhere.
1611, yeah.
But even after the translation, people who were preaching were running into problem with the King of England.
Right.
Because he was having some of the same oppressive means being brought on them that they had to flee even from that time onward. So that's why it's important to note that and there's a statement I make that the problem is the philosophy of the Catholic Church.
Right, right.
The philosophy is a problem. Right.
That's why you can, I mean, essentially get rid of the Catholic Church and you'll still have the same
Oppression.
problems. You'll still have, somebody's going to
oppression.
take,
Yeah.
somebody's going to take on that role.
Right, because what it is that the philosophy is the problem. Because when you have the philosophy, you can teach somebody the philosophy and they just keep going. And so the philosophy is the issue. And that's why I'm saying when you understand the beast, what it's doing, you understand it's the philosophy. And anybody takes on the philosophy, as America is doing, slowly what it gets more and more corrupt. Please.
So therefore, I mean, let me know if I'm getting this correctly. All these schools that creates lawyers that are of Jesuit influence.
Yes. That's the power right there.
That's the power. So therefore, people may say, I am not a practicing Catholic. But at the same time, if I have the same mindset, where there's 6 of us on the Supreme Court and 3 Jews, and a lot of the Jews have gone to Jesuit institutions.
They're Jesuit trained.
And just exactly.
They train over here in whatever that school is called in New Jersey.
Seton Hall, yeah.
Right? So they train in Duke, they train in
Duke, Georgetown.
right. So the philosophy of jurisprudence is in their mind.
Is in their mind.
But it's from that system. Now that's important because I'll say this and I'll move on to, I want to get at least 2 more points in. Notice here in verse 2 again in Revelation 13, it says, a beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, and his feet was like to a bear, and his mouth as unto a lion. This idea of a leopard represent the Grecian Empire. The Grecian Empire was known for education, primarily philosophy and mythology. That's why the Grecian Empire was so powerful. What the Catholic Church did is brought on the Grecian mythology of teaching into its schools, and that's what made it so corrupt. When you go to a Catholic school, one of the main things you'll learn is there's no law, basically. It's open-ended thinking. Philosophy is open-ended. Mythology is open-ended. Greek mythology is there's no real. You see, where the Bible says, thou shalt not. With their philosophy, it's more circumstantial. If you're in a circumstance, morality change based upon the circumstance. Philosophy is open-ended thinking. Whatever the philosophy is, I can reason around it. Because I can come to this conclusion. Your conclusion is not my conclusion. My conclusion and your conclusion are 2 different conclusions. It's relativism, right?
But
and that's what makes it so dangerous. But go ahead, please.
isn't that what Satan uses?
Right. It's all from the master.
From the
himself.
master. Think about it. He says, I will exalt myself. And the reason why I did this, in his situational rationalization of it, he was able to convince 1/3 of the state, the angels, because it was like, come on, God is an unjust God.
That's right.
Unfair.
Okay, you think about it. Even all this thing with all this priest abuse that's been going on, and these nun abuse, because the nuns were being abused, and I believe they are abusers themselves. If you see what's going on there, you can see where the problem is. You require that 2 people shouldn't get married. And I always say, it's not gonna work. You're telling a man at 20-something to swear to celibacy. At 20-something, you can swear to a whole bunch of stuff. You don't know what you're doing. 5, 10 years later, you're going to realize I made a mistake. You know, there's a herb called chase tree berry. It's supposed to cut the drive. Right? So if you want your drive cut, you take that herb. And guess who one of the big takers of it? Priests and monks. Because they're up in the mountain by themselves and they need something to cut that drive. Sorry.
But no, but preacher, what happens?
I don't think it's working.
No, but
it probably helps. I'm not saying it won't help, but it won't stop it.
I remember, and it depends on the vibrancy of the person. I worked in a court when I was the police supervisor in the court, and there was a judge that was, he was about 85. And I remember reading years ago when someone had asked the professor and says, one of the theology students had asked the professor and said, professor, at what point in life do I lose this drive that I have for women? And then the professor, who was in his 70s, said, you're supposed to lose it? And this 80-something-year-old man who rode to work, he would always come and say, that's a good-looking officer there, Sergeant. And I was like, man, this guy, 80-something years old. And he was still coming and checking out the girls.
When he dies.
Yeah, till he dies, till God takes his breath.
Yeah, it's the honest and never.
Yep.
And so you 20-something-year-old, and you say, the pledge is going to hold you. And then it's like stopping in Niagara Falls. It ain't going to stop it. It's going to be a problem. And they don't. And so so now they're going to have to find ways, other ways to do it. And that's where the problem is. Never should have been. There's no Bible for it. Bible says better to marry than to burn.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, because I've known people who have had flashes, said they'll just run and they'll open up the fridge and go push their body into the fridge. So it doesn't make sense. But they do this, and then now there's bad results that come, and everybody's saying, what's the bad result? The bad mistake was to go against God. God says that should never be. So if you look at this here, I want to just touch on, I think, 2 more points. I want to show something here. I take 2 points of the Thursday lesson because we could just keep going, and then I want to show you 1 or 2 more things from Energy Wise writing. Notice now, this is This is the part we're talking about Mount Megiddo. Yeah, okay. And I'm going to go down to the statement that says, who is the true God? The fire that came from heaven demonstrated that the Lord was the only true God and the only one to worship. While the spiritual issue of Babylon, the issue of the Battle of Armageddon will we obey God? So Thursday's lesson, right? Sorry, Thursday's lesson. Right. Will we obey God is decided before the plagues fall. So notice it say, the issue is decided before the plagues fall. Who side with the dragon, the beast, and the false prophet? Revelation 16:13. Will then be totally controlled by the devil, as Jesus in the crucifixion. So notice you say here, all of this is decided before the battle, right? So everybody's going to know, you over here or you over here. So that's what the lesson author is teaching. So now come down with me. We're going to add another point here. Then skip the next paragraph and let's go to the first part. Armageddon is not a military battle among nations to be fought. So see, Armageddon is not a military battle among nations to be fought somewhere in the Middle East, but a global spiritual context in which Christ decisively confront the forces of darkness. The outcome will be like the Carmel, but the worldwide scale, with God triumph over the forces of darkness. All right. So he said it's not going to be a military battle, right? And it's only going to be a spiritual battle. How is God going to confront them? Before the seven last plague, how is he going to confront them? He doesn't explain the lesson, at my point. That's Thursday. Finishes. If it's only a spiritual battle, how is the spiritual battle fought without confrontation?
It has to be.
When the people of God, speaking God's message, is confronted by the people who are in Babylon who don't want to accept God's message, they're going to imprison.
So how is there going to be a confrontation where God's going to confront them, but it's not going to be a military battle? There's not the seven last plague, but the seven last plague is God. So how is that confrontation going to happen? Where in the Bible do you have an explanation that it's not? It's just going to be a confrontation spiritually.
It's just going to...
I don't see that.
How do you confront without
actual physical...
Because remember, in the story of Elijah, the confrontation happened, fire comes down, and then there's...
Yeah, and Elijah cuts their necks.
Head off. In the story that we just had talked about before, where the children of Israel cross the Red Sea, they get drowned.
Right.
But that drowning happened as the last act.
Right.
They're saying this is before the seven last plague, so the beatdown doesn't come, so how God confront them?
I don't know.
How do you confront without confront? Now, remember now, in Revelation 12, it says there was war in heaven, and Michael and the angel fight. What kind of fight was that, you think?
Physical fight, thrown out.
He got pitched out.
Somebody
got hurt.
when you physically remove someone from the premises, you lay hands on them, and you physically say, you don't stay here anymore.
So if you say the battle is not a military battle among nations fought somewhere in the Middle East, but a global spiritual contest, how do you have a spiritual contest? What does that mean, spiritual? Like I preach and somebody preach, then the next person preach, and we see who is the best preach?
Spiritual battle.
And we do that? All right, let me go to some text. I want to show you something. So he says a spirit. No, you don't find this nowhere in the Bible. Let's first go to Revelation 17. I want to show you something. Because what it is a constant effort to not deal with the civil part of America, the civil part of the Catholic Church, the civil part or the physical part of the battle. Now, if you look at Revelation, if I could just get there real quickly, I must show you something. Notice here in the end of Revelation, last verse in Revelation 17. Yeah, chapter 7. Revelation chapter 17. No, not 18. I'm off to find it then. You said the last verse. Yeah, I know. I said the last verse, and I came to the last verse, and it's not what I was talking about. There, he shall eat his flesh. All right, so yeah, definitely the last verse. But I mean, 17 is the verse I'm looking for. Okay, so we're going to start for verse 9. I'm way up more than I thought. And here is the mind of... right, so here is the mind. So here is the mind which hath wisdom. The 7 heads and 10 mountains are seven mountains on which the woman sitteth. And there are 7 kings of 5 are fallen, one is, and the other is yet to come. And when he cometh, he must continue for a short time. And the beast that was and evil is the 8th and is the 7th and goeth in perdition. That's what I want to read. And the 10 horns which thou seest are 10 kings, right? Which have received no kingdom yet, but receive power as kings in one hour with the beast. These have one mind and shall give their power and strength unto the beast. These shall make war with the Lamb. Is this the spiritual contest they're talking about? No. Think about this now. And the Lamb shall overcome them, for he is Lord of Lords, King and King. And they that are with him are called, chosen, and faithful. Now notice here, the waters that you see, right? I just scanned this and so I almost lost my place. Then tell me where I'm at because I just
You at
moved
15
this.
now.
15?
15, yeah. The waters.
And it said, the water of the sea which thou hast sawest, where the horse sitteth, are peoples and multitude and nation and tongue. And the 10 horns which thou seest upon the beast, these shall hate the what?
The whore.
Whore, and shall make her what?
Desolate and naked,
and shall
she shall
eat her flesh and burn her with fire.
Mm-hmm.
What is that describing?
The whore.
Plague is not fall yet.
No.
There's a battle going on. Christ
But
is
she's
fighting
going to
with
get a
them.
beat
That's
down.
the spiritual contest they're talking about. But they said there's no physical war. What does the text says right there?
She's going to be exposed. Right?
But what are they going to do with her also? They shall
It
hate
says,
her.
hate her, make her desolate.
Well, you make somebody desolate. How are they going to make her desolate?
Everything that she had is going to be taken away.
What?
I'm going to show you that in Revelation 16
Yeah.
in a second. It's not just spiritual because there's no such thing as this, because they're saying there's going to be no civil war. There's going to be no war, right? And there's too much statements in energy white notes, in energy white statements in the Bible that shows you clearly. Notice here, they shall hate her, and they shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire. What when you burn a whore with fire? Sorry to talk like this, but when you burn a whore with fire, what is happening? The Alma used to burn witches.
You kill them.
You kill
You're
them.
destroying them.
So somebody's going to get physically destroyed.
And when we look at 18 is the desolation of Babylon.
It's the desolation of Babylon.
Right.
Mike,
Right.
gotta use a mic. Can't hear.
Doesn't always have to be a war where you are fighting physical,
Right.
but we could have war,
Economic war,
economic wars. We can have
propaganda war.
propaganda wars. We can have
Germ warfare.
technology where they do
Cyber.
Cyber war.
Attacker. I believe all of that is on the table.
all those things
Yeah.
where
To damage
you
and
can
cripple.
you can cripple a nation through those means even faster than you can, going with some.
But you're right with the
Sonic.
embargoes.
Look what was
With
happening
guns,
in
with
the
actual
embassies
physically
with the
attacking
sound
them.
from the crickets, right?
But isolation. Remember, desolation. You can desolate someone through isolation.
But it's this statement is too much verbiage.
Right.
If you just had said probably desolation, or cause her to be naked, or eat her flesh, or one of those things, I'll say okay. But
Right.
it says 4 different things.
All
That
of
tells me
them.
that there's everything is on the table. I'm going to show you some more text, but go ahead and...
But I just want to, because I see now, even with what's happening with the country now, and individuals, the leadership is saying, well, you know what? We want to cut them off by the tariff. And what has happened? People have already started, and I've heard some of those on the left saying, you know what? Countries are already starting to go to other sources to get their grains, to get their rice.
And that's why I say, by teaching lesson, I'm not talking about the practical. They're just saying only spiritual. What it is that the thing could be happening in front of you.
Right.
And you're not seeing that said this is literally could happen.
It is happening.
Where, guess what happened? You're doing this, tit for tat. You embargo us.
Right.
We embargo you.
But
we start to find out the sources, and instead of strengthening the nation, they weaken the nation. Because if you saw this, that last month was the lowest amount of taxes they collected.
Right.
Since how many years?
Yeah.
The revenue has gone down. But go ahead.
And yet, and then everybody I talk to, especially in New York State, they're crying. I run into a buddy of mine. He's crying. He says, "Man, the taxes are killing me. How could the president come from New York and do this?" And then you're surprised when you say you're going to pardon someone, and the people who got to pay the taxes say, we're going to indict him. 1 minute after you say you're going to pardon him, we're going to indict. Because there's going to be internal strife within.
That's right.
And a lot of people are saying, you know what, if a country has bailed us out, they said they're not going to come back to America to buy because we don't know. It's unpredictable. Who knows what your next president's going to do?
Well, wait a minute. How are you going to be doing all this tariff against a country that you're borrowing money from?
Exactly. That you owe.
You owe all this money.
Right.
You like bite the hand that feed you.
Yes.
It don't make no. I don't know why they're doing this. I know why they're doing this because these evangelicals are fooling them up. But let's go to Revelation 16 because I just want to get a few more points in. Revelation 16.
You preaching, man. Keep going.
Yeah, but look at this here because I wanted to, it's you show. So we at the fifth in verse 10, right? So the lesson author dealt with the fifth. On Monday's lesson, I think it was, it's talk about the fifth seal, right? So I just want to talk about that real quickly. The fifth angel, sorry. So in verse 10, let me just scroll this up a little bit. 16:10. Notice here, and the fifth angel poured out his vial upon the seat of the beast. So this is what I was saying, is depends how you view the beast. If you view the beast as the three-headed monster, I'm going to show you that it's not just the papacy that is in view. All right, I'm going to show you in a second. The text will clarify itself. And the kingdom was full of darkness, and they gnawed their tongues for pain. So this is the seventh last plague. But notice, and blaspheme God of heaven because of their pains and their sores, and repent not of their deeds. The sixth angel poured his vial upon a great river, Euphrates, and the waters thereof were dried up, that the way of the kings of the east might be prepared. So they would say now, in the lesson, it says, this is not anything practical. This is all spiritual. So the question is, how do you drought the great river Euphrates? Now, if you remember the story of Babylon, when it was destroyed, Cyrus the Great, nobody could figure out how to destroy the city, Babylon. So he came up with this ingenious idea. Let's dig the river and dig a trench or a canal and empty the river basin, the river that is Euphrates. I think there's two main rivers that run through Babylon, Tigris and Euphrates, but he needed to drain the Euphrates, which was the main source. River represents a stream. Fishes, water, everything. A city can't survive without the boats, everything, so you can shut it down. So all they're saying is just spiritual. There's nothing physical, because remember, they're saying Babylon is only the Protestant churches, or the Catholic. They don't talk about the rest of Europe. You get the point? Because they don't want to talk about the civil part, they only want to talk about the spiritual part, so they try to make all the prophecy be spiritual, not civil. But how do you shut down the river Euphrates? They say, well, the people probably start giving money to the Catholic church or the Protestant church. That's not going to shut it down because the stream is not nothing. But notice here, I'm going to show you how. And as I say, I'm always open to challenge because I do not believe I'm followed by my Bible student. I didn't receive this as God give me a vision or something like that. So look at my study. If you look at this now, the river Euphrates represents the source of stream. Mm-hmm. Cyrus, the historical account will go off, Cyrus physically cut off the stream.
Right.
They physically cut off the stream, so the kings of the East, the Medes and the Persians, which is Iran in our modern day, can come over and hit Babylon and destroy it. Right. That's literally what happened. So the Bible uses the same analogy. So if we apply this and say this is symbol, and the kings of the East, if I take it as symbol as saying what could happen. Now think about it. What America has done and Europe has done when it comes on to its source of sustenance. Where does the source of sustenance for America come from?
But if China, one of the places.
It's the East.
It's the East.
But it's not just China. It's China, Vietnam, South Korea, all these things. Why did they
Taiwan.
Why did they go there?
The cheap labor.
Cheap labor. But what do? You put yourself in a critical situation.
But preacher, you know what I think? Because I'm studying now because in doing temperance and stewardship, when we're looking at I'm studying on the treasure. And and one of the things that I was reading about treasure, which just popped into my mind, you can never ever be blessed if you're so tight holding on to what God has given you.
You have to give back something.
You have to give back.
If you hold on to
If you hold on, God will be blessing you, and your hands are so closed that it would be like, no, I'm not. I don't want to give anything. But the more you give, and when your hand is open, you receive. Right. And what has America done? Why are we supporting these countries? But you know what? When you support these countries, you're being a blessing to them, and other nations will come and bless you. And I see when you start shutting off the East, like you said, biting the hand that feeds you. A lot of people say, I'm not going to, I got too many bills, I'm holding on to stuff. When you hold on, you don't get the blessings that come with that.
But then I shutting off the East. That's what they would want to know. But what to me is even a bigger thing is if the East can shut them down.
Oh, yes.
Because
absolutely.
Think about all these things that we have in our homes.
Everything is made in China.
Right, but now I'm almost certain the scooter I have on now is made in Vietnam.
Yeah,
or
everything.
Malaysia.
Indonesia.
No, I don't know. That's why I say I believe in the Bible, I believe in prophecy. Because here we are, so much of what flows into the United States and Europe
everything
comes from the East. It's not Africa, it's not Russia, and it's not South America. Some of it is coming, but very little. Most of it is from the East. The Asians are getting it. But it's important, something else. Is the only group, which is Jephthah, that has not received the gospel. And I haven't got a big revival in the gospel.
Oh, that 1040 window.
Japheth, sorry, thanks very much. Japheth. Ham has got it. Ham is normally in the Middle East and in Africa.
Right.
And the other one? Shem, which is European, Russian, that area. But he's not gone over there. Mm-hmm. That's the area, and that's the area that even the sister was talking about, that is they're now hungering for the gospel, and China is trying to shut it down.
Yep.
Because China don't want to get it spread. But this is where it's coming. So anyhow, if you look at it, it's the great river Euphrates, and if you notice where America is most concerned about right now. When Obama was leaving power, Obama told
be careful with North Korea.
North Korea. I don't. Somebody says, "Oh no, this is just it's not coincidence." The Bible says the way of the kings of the East. And notice, North Korea is not on their own.
No.
It's China, Japan, they're backing them secretly, because what it is, it keeps America at bay.
And it keeps America in place. Not just away, but it keeps America in place. Let it know, you think you're the big boys on the block. But you know what? We can survive without you. You need us more than we need you.
That's the fear that's coming. The fear is that, guess what happened? The tables are turning.
Right.
And China is soon to become the #1 economy. And that's where the fear is. So I'm going to read the text again, and notice here, it says here, where am I? 12, right? And the sixth angel poured out his vial upon the great river Euphrates, and the water there should be dried up, that the way of the kings of the east might be prepared. So it's to prepare the way of the kings of the east to come, because guess what happened? It's that weakening. Because although you're doing tariffs, how you do tariffs against the people who has so much power, because they can diversify faster. Because remember, who has I'm lending you money, who's more powerful?
The lender.
The lender is always more powerful. If I'm building your goods, who is more powerful?
The one who's building.
The one who is building, because I'm building the goods. Notice in verse 13, and I saw 3 unclean spirits like frogs come out of the mouth of the dragon, out of the mouth of the beast, and out of the mouth of the false prophet. Now, in the story of Moses, the last miracle that the false prophets or the necromancers or soothsayers were able to duplicate was the plague of the frogs. Remember everything that Aaron did?
Yeah,
they duplicated it.
Right.
The last thing we were able to do was to duplicate the frog. That was the limit of their duplication.
Right.
After that, they could not duplicate any more miracles. They were outplayed. So this is why this is significant. The Bible says the unclean spirits come out of them. It is like frogs.
Right.
You know, ribbit, jumping. Now, when you notice, what does people do in Pentecostal churches?
Jump up, pray.
Ribbit. Do they talk in ribbits?
Yep.
You talk ribbit, and they jump.
False prophet.
Now, why is that significant? Because isn't that the movement that's sweeping evangelical churches?
Yes, it is.
And they're the ones that's pushing all this evil?
Yep.
It's the church that is jumping up like frogs, or the churches that what's come out of the mouth is the same thing. If you go, and as I say, every time I do this text, I always want a video. Because there's videos if you see Hindus, when they get in the spirit, they do the same.
Yeah.
They get in the
Same thing,
spirit.
yeah.
If you see Africans,
Yeah.
when they get in the spirit, they do the same.
It's the same spiritism,
It's
you
the
know.
same spirit. It doesn't matter if it's paganism
It's
or
different,
Christianity. It's the
Yeah,
same
it's
spirit.
same spirit, yeah.
Notice it, and out of the mouth of the dragon, so spiritualism does it. Notice all of them goes into trance, because that's all it is, a trance.
Yep.
You hypnotize yourself. This is the way to hypnotize yourself. It's the jumping that is the hypnotize. The other way to hypnotize yourself, as the Hindu do, they say a mantra.
Yep.
Or the Christian do, they say Jesus, Jesus, Jesus.
Yes,
If you
the
do that,
blood, the blood, the
it,
blood,
it
yeah.
put your brain into, I think, an alpha wave or beta. I can't remember what the
think
wave
it's
is.
a
And
alpha, yeah.
it stuck your brain. And then that creates a euphoria. And when you
Vain
get that
repetition, but their hearts are far from it.
Right. This is that vain repetition. You say the thing, and that's just a mantra. If you say it long enough, you hypnotize yourself. That's how
Right.
you. That's why hypnotists will repeat the same thing over and over again until it stuck your brain into a wave-like pattern, and then they fill your mind with darkness. Notice the mouth of the dragon, or the mouth of the beast, and on the mouth of the false prophet. Now, who's the false prophet? We normally say the dragon is secularism, paganism, heathenism. We normally say the beast is the Catholic Church. Who is the false prophet? America. I just normally say America. But it's apostate. The answer is apostate Protestantism. It's a false prophet.
And it's amazing.
Why is they false prophet? Ask Donald Trump.
Well, the thing is,
It's all lies that they tell.
right. But I'm saying, and looking, it makes such sense because look at the unnatural influence that Protestantism has on the presidency. Boom. There you go. That's it.
Because think about it. Slavery. Who pushed slavery? The Southern Baptist
Southern
Convention.
Baptist. Yep.
Who pushed Jim Crow law? Same Southern Baptist
Baptist.
Convention. Who's back in the presidency?
Southern
Baptist
Baptist.
Convention. Warren Judge. All these things, they were the ones that always pushed the evil. It's the same group. Who's pushing Israel to be reoccupied when God
Yeah,
says
no.
Israel is not supposed to be
Yeah.
reoccupied? The Jews are supposed to be scattered. It's the Southern Baptist Convention. It's evangelical. Pushing the reestablishment of Israel. And what are they doing? They're murdering the Palestinians to do it.
To do it, yeah.
And the American people say we are for that. Why they're for it, they don't know. Because the Bible tells me why they're doing it. Because the devil is leading them down that path. A few more points here before we close. And it says, God bless you here. It says, and I saw you. No, for they are the spirits of devils working miracles, which go forth to the kings of the earth and of the whole world to gather them together for the battle of the great day of God. So is this battle only spiritual? Because as I say, I'll read it again. Let's the author say, yep, it's only spiritual. Makes no sense, but that's what it says. The Armageddon is a military battle. It's not a military battle amongst nations to be fought where? Over in the Middle East. Right? A few years ago, I'm teaching that it is going to be spiritual and it's going to be physical. Now, why? Because every single military in any major country has now put a military base in the Middle East. And if you're familiar with that. You're not? A few more points. Verse 15, he says, come as a thief, and verse 16 says, and he gathered together the place called, in the Hebrew tongue, Armageddon. And then we stop there. So I'm going to give you a few more verses just to solidify that point. I'm going to go to Daniel. Let me see. Go over here to Daniel. Where is it? Right here. And then I'm going to go to verse 7. Just a few more thoughts before I close here. All right, so this here is verse, I think I'll start here at 25. All right, look at Daniel verse 7, verse 25. And notice it says here, oh, Daniel chapter 7, sorry, it's not that clear on here. Daniel 7, verse 25. Just a few more thoughts I want to throw here. Yep, I'll just see if I can just get one or two more thoughts. Oh yeah, let me read it. So Daniel 7 verse 25, and ye shall speak great words against the Most High, and shall wear the saints of the Most High, and think to change times and laws. So this is the Bible predicting that the Catholic Church would try to change times and laws. And so I always explain, so I'll just say it. What I think the Catholic Church did was they have Lent. Familiar with Lent? Lent is not in the Bible. There's no such thing as 40 days before Christ. Christ was not. Fast. When did Christ fast? At what time in his ministry? At the end of his ministry, it's the beginning of his ministry. The Catholic says 40 days Lent come 40 days before his crucifixion. See, that make no sense. There was no 40 days before Christ's crucifixion that Christ was fasting and abstaining from fish. From meat, and then fish on Friday or something like that. Right? There's no such thing in the Bible. Now, where did they get that? They just basically make up a whole bunch of stuff, and they come with Lent. And so 40 days before Christ's crucifixion, they claim Christ fasted for 40 days. No such thing in the Bible. The Bible doesn't teach that. Christ fasted at the beginning of his ministry. And then that's it, where they come in Lent. Another thing, December 25th they say it's the day of Christ's birth. But when Christ was born, so we know Christ died when? When he was 33 and a half years old, right? So that was what time of the year? End of March, beginning of April, right? 6 months. So if Christ died 33 and a half, 6 months before Christ's death, count back 6 months from the death of Christ, where you land. Right? So count it back for me. What by? September, October. So Christ could not born December 25th if he was 33 and a half years old when he died. It has to be September, October. Can't be. So how we get that? The Catholics came up with that. Why? Because on December 25th, because they didn't understand fully, but they got this idea that says the sun died at December 24th, 23rd. It's the lowest point of the sun. Because they were living in Europe, it was freezing cold. And then now the sun started to set later in the day at December 25th. And so they said the sun the rebirth of the SUN at December 25th because it was a pagan celebration. It was sun worship.
Sun worship.
And so they say now Christ was born on December 25th instead of saying, which we know Christ will be born somewhere in September, October. Right? So they came up with this SUN worship. So they said, well, they changed it and say, oh, no, it's the birth of Jesus Christ. They celebrate Christmas on December 25th. But Christ could never have born December 25th. This is some more.
Because also just playing while shepherds watch their flocks
by night. The shepherd would have been
seated on the grass.
Yeah, they're on the grass outside.
And I just a question concerning the information superhighway. Like you said, everything could be verified.
Yes.
Now, I look on the... I just look, I like comedians. And you look, and comedians are there talking about why are we celebrating, not Adventists, not Christian, just individuals who's like, why are you celebrating the birth of a man when historically, it didn't occur then. And it says it was put in place. That's what I heard a comedian said. It was put in place by the Catholic Church. And why are we, the rest of the world, following after the Catholic Church?
Why we're following the Catholic Church? Because if you look at it, when we do, like as I said, when you say December 25th, you're really talking about, because of the calculation now because of modern technology. Yeah. We know that the sun set the earliest, not December 25th. They were even wrong 21st. With that.
Right,
it was somewhere around 21st, 22nd.
The solstice.
So really, if they were going to celebrate, it should have been on December 21st, 22nd, as the time of when the sun set the earliest and start coming back up and setting earlier. So they were even off on that, but that's what they thought then, because most actually they would have been more observable by December 25th to the natural eye. But with modern telescopes and stuff, we know it's about December 21st, 22nd. Right? So, and then the same thing with the Sabbath. People, there's no biblical evidence for Sunday worship. It's only for Sabbath. Sunday worship, again, is paganism. So when we look at that, but I just almost there. So it says here, but judgment shall sit, and they shall take away. So notice verse 26. This is a big text to me that I like to point out. Because judgment shall sit, and they shall take away his dominion, and to consume and to destroy to the end. Now, it's important that his dominion is going to be taken away and to destroy to the end. So people say, well, I don't understand. If the papacy is going to get power via America putting papacy and power, how does this text make sense? Because this text is saying that the Lord is going to take away its dominion and power. Now, remember how the papacy came in power. You remember how the papacy came in power? Rome, under the Caesar, had total lost power. And it was a sleight of hand, so to speak, to turn a failing country or Europe over to the papacy because they wanted a moral leader, because remember, immorality was eaten away at the Roman Empire. But what happened? Did it make Europe better or worse?
It made it worse.
It made it worse. It plunged into what we call now the modern, what we call
the Dark Ages.
The Dark Ages.
Dark Ages.
Now, what is it that's the trouble with America right now?
Go ahead, preacher.
It's going down.
Going down.
And as I said, that's something you could just go on YouTube and put in, like what's making America go down. You're going to find videos on there, people comparing to Rome.
Yep.
So I think that's fascinating. Because some of these people are secular. And they're looking at it and say, what we can compare to what's going on in America now is what happened in Rome.
Yep.
And what did the Romans do? They decided that because they're waning in power, let's turn it over to the church. Well, what does the Bible predict? That they're going to turn the country over to the church, but that's not going to make America get great again.
No.
What it's going to do is just destroy America. Right. I want to show you one or two quotations before we go with that. So think about it. Here's quickly. One day I'm going to do a presentation. I'm going to go through the pieces. But let's just talk about real quickly before we close out with one or two quotes. Rome went in a rentier state. What rentier means is everything was rented. That's why I found it fascinating, everybody leasing. People just rent stuff. Nobody was manufacturing anything anymore.
Yep.
Now, when you think about how powerful that is, Rome had stopped making stuff.
Stop being a manufacturer.
They stopped being a manufacturer because nobody wanted to manufacture and make anything anymore.
Yep.
What has happened in America? Where we send the manufacturer,
everything is in China. But preacher, think about those who lived in the islands and come from even some of the second and third world countries. The fact that you used to grow your own fruits, grow your own vegetables, and a lot of people have stopped that and they're important. And what happens to that country?
Go down. Number one, you got to secure your food.
Yep.
Another thing, Rome was famous for its Colosseums, especially the main Colosseum. Right. What was going on in the main Colosseum?
Entertainment, Christian.
What kind of entertainment? Christian entertainment?
Barbarian.
What's the number one sport in America today? The most violent, nothing about almost all the sports in America that are famous.
Football.
Are violent sport. And the number one sport in America, as you know, is American football.
Football.
These are the top gladiators in the world. The biggest monsters that you can find are going at it. And then if it's not that, it's MMA, boxing, whatever else. Right?
Hockey.
Entertainment. The other thing with Rome became too spread out.
Yes.
They could not maintain. America has 180 air bases across the world. Not air bases, bases across the world. Military bases across the world. So what it is, Rome after a while couldn't afford all those bases to keep its empire going. Now, 180 bases.
Preacher, you're scaring me. You're so right.
No, across the world. Just think about that, how powerful that is. Rome also was having a problem maintaining their currency.
Yes.
And so they have to be devaluing stuff. One thing they were saying that Rome will do is they sell you a box of cornflakes. Yeah. And it has 12 ounces of cornflakes. Next year, they keep the price the same, but they give you 10 ounces of cornflakes.
Preach!
So what is happening? That's called devaluation.
That's what they're doing.
But it don't feel like devaluation because you're still paying $3 for the box of cornflakes. And the box is still the same height.
Same size box, less contents, less.
And this package is just a bunch of air. And you say, well, the price didn't go up, but the volume went down. I mean, they have gone through so many things. I say, somebody sit there and go through every single thing that was going on in Rome. Political intrigue. They couldn't control the politics because what happened is constant infighting because everybody's blaming the other person for the failure.
Oh, my goodness.
But the problem is the failure is on both sides.
Yes.
You see what I'm saying? The failures
Corruption.
It's all this corruption. It's all these people living. I'm going to tell you, this is not one of the easy ones, but one of the ones, homosexuality had run rampant.
Rampant.
In
And they were encouraging it.
And I'm telling you, I see some people lick their dog's mouth and tongue. I was like, I know what's
That's
going on
because
in
they love their
private.
dog.
That's more than love.
They love their dog.
That's more than love.
You see when the dog puts his mouth, he drinks out of the water bowl. You might as well start drinking out the I'm sorry.
It's, I mean, and so forth and so on. So when you look at that, so I wanted to share, there's some more, but you get the point though. And immorality. Immorality in Rome was out of control, and we look around us, the immorality is out of control. You have, I mean, I just can't. It's just so much that you see. It's the exact replication. We're replicating Rome.
But you know what's funny?
It's the same replication, and at the end of the day, the violence, the wars, the this, the that, the same thing Rome was doing. And we go and look, these wars, we are not paying for these wars yet. We're just adding to the debt. Now we're doing $1 trillion a year in debt. That's remarkable.
And but part of the problem with Rome also, it was that the elite and the rich were totally insensitive
Totally insensitive to the
to the
people.
exactly.
All right. So
And that's what's happening now. And people are saying, and even one party is saying, you can't be like that because they'll rise up. Lord have mercy.
Lord of mercy. Wow. Okay. Let me just go back to this text. This is one thing I wanted to, two tech quotation I wanted to put before I go. One is in great controversy. I'm reading verse 26, right? But the judgment shall sit, and they shall take away his dominion, and to consume and to destroy it unto the end, right? And the kingdom and the dominion of the greatness of the kingdom shall be on it. Okay, great. So destroy. Okay, so let me go down to, I'm going to go to great controversy real quickly. There's two quotes I want to read for you before. Let's find it here, over here. Great GC. And I'm going to go to this thing, file over here. All right, so notice here now. All right, so I'm going to start here from page 605 of Great Controversy. It's not very clear. I do apologize for that. I don't know why it's so frost. It's not like that on my screen. It's black, but there it looks gray. I have real screen. We're working on it. So notice here, I wanted to share two ideas here for you, just to show that one is this, and then one is to show that the battle is real. All right. So notice here, of Babylon at the time brought to view in this prophecy, it declares, earth sin has reached unto heaven, and God, this is Revelation 18, God, I remember her iniquity. She has filled up the measure of her guilt, and destruction is about to fall upon her. What is about to fall? Destruction. But God still has people in Babylon, and before the visitation of his judgment, these faithful ones must be called out, that they partake not of her sins and receive not of her plague. So she's saying, God is saying to her, tell those people in these churches that are doing these things, you need to get out. Right? Hence, the movement symbolized by the angel coming from heaven, lightening the earth with his glory and crying mightily with a strong voice, announcing the sins of Babylon. So what are we talking about here? We're talking about what? The sins of Babylon. Does that make sense? Right? The sins of Babylon. In connection with his message, the call is heard, come out of her, my people. These announcements unite with the third angel message, constitute the final warning to be given to the inhabitants of the earth. So the third angel message is a message of don't overturn the Second Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. Don't stop freedom of religion. Does that make sense? Yes. And you add that to Revelation 13. Fearful are the issues. The world is, God bless you. The world is to be brought, the powers of the earth uniting against. Sorry. Let me just, because I need this. I bring it here for this, so I can't mess this up. Fearful is the issue to which the world is to be brought. The powers of earth uniting to what? War against the commandments of God, and to decree all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, shall conform to the custom of the church by observance as a false Sabbath. all who refuse compliance will be visited with what? No, civil penalty, right? So notice here, it's not just religious penalty. It's what? Civil penalty. That's why I'm showing you that there's a, God bless you, God bless you. There is a civil part. This is not just spiritual warfare. Does that make sense? Right? So this is a civil penalty, and it will be finally declared that they are deserving of what? Is that a spiritual battle only, or is that a physical? Well, because you're using the government. Remember, it's the government that they will use to enforce their rules. Notice there, on the other hand, the laws of God enjoin the Creator's rest day ordinance and threaten wrath against all who transgress the precept. With the issue clearly brought before him, whoever shall trample on God's law to obey human enactments, receive the mark of the beast. I just want to go down a little bit more before we exit here. Just give me 1 second. All right, so I want to notice there, it's civil, right? Because remember, it's a church influencing the state. Notice, and somebody said, well, how do you know this is going to happen? Well, I believe in the prophecy, but also look what's going on. Who is influencing the current president at this moment? It's the religious people influencing the state, whether it be the thing in Israel, whether it be all this thing with the border wall, all this thing. Go ahead, please.
But no, what you're saying is it happened maybe about 2 weeks ago, maybe about 4 weeks, 5 weeks ago, where the Muslim inmate was being put to death, and they fast track it to the Supreme Court and say kill him. And all he wanted was his spiritual leader, an imam, to come. So he says, no, you have to be a Christian. It has to be a priest or a pastor.
Right. That's discrimination.
And that's discrimination.
And that's
and that would have never happened in any other Supreme Court case except this one.
All right. 2 more paragraphs, and then I'm going to try to find one thing before we go. So notice here in these 2 paragraphs. In every generation, God has sent his servant to rebuke the sins, both in the world and in the church. Notice here, it's both in the world and the church. Notice they have a heavy emphasis. I just want to talk about the church. Both in the church and in the world. If you think about Isaiah didn't just preach to Jews. He preached to all the kings around what they were doing. Jeremiah, the same thing. All right, so both to the church and the world. I always have to lose my point here. I lose my place. But the people, desire smooth things spoken to them, and the pure and varnished truth is not acceptable. Many reformers in entering upon their work determined to exercise great prudence in attacking the sins of the church and what? And the nations. So you can't just keep talking about the church, while the nations is doing all these evil things. Notice here, the church and the nation, they hope by the example of pure Christian life to lead the people back to the doctrines of the Bible. But the Spirit of God came upon them as it came upon Elijah, moving him to rebuke the sins of a wicked king and an apostate people. Right? Not just the king, the apostate people. They could not refrain from preaching the plain utterances of the Bible, doctrines which they had been reluctant to present. They were impelled to zealously declare the truth and the dangers which threaten the souls. The words which the Lord gave them, they uttered fearless of consequence, and the people were compelled to hear the warning. Notice this now. Thus the message of the third angel will be proclaimed. As the time comes for it to be given with greatest power, the Lord will work through humble instruments, leading the minds of those who are consecrated themselves to his service. The laborers will be qualified rather by the unction of the Holy Spirit than by the training of literary institution. Men of faith and prayer will be constrained to go forth with holy zeal, declaring the words which God's given them. The sins of Babylon will be what? Laid open. Why is that important? Because all what's going on will be just unmasked. And this is what I was saying this morning, that what's happening, especially with social media, we wouldn't know all about the priest abuse if it wasn't for the internet telling us that it's happening worldwide. Because at first they were saying, oh, it's in America. The Pope came and said, oh, it's a problem, it's in America. Then you find out it was in Scotland, it was in England, it was all over Europe, it was in the Caribbean, it was in Africa, it was in Asia. Everywhere it was the same problem. Notice here, the sins of Babylon will be laid open. Now, where is that? Thanks. The message of the fearful results. Say about the nation. No, Elijah, you know what? I missed my place. Oh, yeah, the Say about lay open. The fearful results of enforcing the observance of the church by what power? Civil authority. Notice the emphasis is always on the civil authority. Because who can enforce? Who has the authority to enforce? The civil authority, because the church has no guns. Right? So it's the civil authority, but notice they constantly want to focus upon this, the church, and say it's going to be a spiritual battle, it's a spiritual battle. But without the civil authority, you can talk all you want and pray all you want, you can't enforce a thing. So notice here, it is this that creates a problem. Notice it says here, civil authority, the inroad of spiritualism, because spiritualism, especially we talk about, notice yoga has become huge in America. Yoga is basically salutes to the sun. All yoga is a salute to the sun. Not a joke, I'm serious. If you look up yoga, you'll find out it's sun salutes you're doing.
The first thing that they teach you is the sun salute.
The sun salute. You start out by saluting the sun. You turn to the east, salute, and they teach you also deep breathing, because they say listen to your breathing. What does this get you in a trance? Right, because what it is that, when you normally there's no way to make a person go in a trance and let them listen to the heartbeat. Boop, boop, boop. It's that constant rhythm. And what happens, it's hypnotizing. So our whole presentation is because why? Because if you look in every single major movie nowadays, it's all spiritualism. It's all about the fight between good and evil, God and Satan. All of it, it's all spiritualism. You look at it, it's always something about those good overcoming evil. I know it's all these movies nowadays, especially the Marvel comics and all those comics, the earth has always been destroyed by an outside entity. The earth is always destroyed by an outside entity. There's always a global war and things hitting the planet, and they have to save the planet from the evil person, from the outside entity who try to destroy it, and then they try to fight against it. Come on now, right. This is the Bible right here.
And that's why, and it's funny, but then the outside entity, and they never give credit to God. It's always some wicked thing coming in. Some wicked thing coming in. So when Christ comes, it's going to be this wicked thing is coming to destroy us.
Sorry, I should laugh, but yeah, that's what it is. They've made it, they twisted the plot, and it said, no, Christ coming to destroy the wicked and take his people home. It is really nice that we have to defend ourselves against. Let me tell you something. I really believe that what they're gearing up for, literally, the devil's gearing up for war. I believe it's total war. Because you look at the movies gearing up people, and they twist the plot. All those movies twist the plot. So if you read the Bible, I remember I was talking to a friend of mine. I was explaining some of this thing to my friend. And my friend said, you're talking about the movie Matrix. And I said, describe the movie to me. And he started describing the movie. It's like you were talking about great controversy.
Yeah.
It's just this total twisted. Because you say you're supposed to be in the Matrix, but it's not. You try to get. You just explained it. I couldn't even understand it. It's just this weird plot. And so he's saying what you're talking about. He's saying, I'm supposed to believe what you're saying is real, but you're describing to me a movie. And I'm saying, no, this is not a movie. This is what's going on. Eh? No, he's Adventist.
He's Adventist. What?
But he's in Adventist music. Oh, music, like a music church.
Oh, so a celebration church.
Yeah, yeah.
But that's what.
Yeah.
But he has been, if he reads the quarterly, but he's not studying the Sabbath school.
Oh.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
You can sit in something that doesn't mean that you.
They're getting it, right?
Right, like these kids are right here, right now. We
They're
can't
not
say that
getting
they
it.
know what's happening
They
here.
don't know.
It's the same way, yeah.
They don't know nothing. Right, where are you? Where are you?
In his phone. But that's the thing, as like they're being indoctrinated from that height. with all this stuff on TV, which is the counter narrative
Yes,
of
it's
what
a
the
twisted
truth
narrative
is.
of the truth.
And this is what they have in their brains. And they will believe that more. Look at the other day when Stanley died, or whoever the person was died.
Oh, the Marvel guy.
And
Stan Lee, yes.
And Bill Maher made a comment, and they were pouring on to Bill Maher, like attacking him because he was like, "What's this whole comic book stuff you guys are carrying on?" You know what I'm saying? But they believe that, and they will look at you and say, "You believe the Bible? You are a simpleton. You are very foolish."
You're out there.
Yes.
Off the wall.
And not just the Matrix. What's the blue movie? What was that one? Avatar.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's another-
Avatar. I have a friend. She's
No,
a,
I don't know how you connect that, but go ahead.
no, because the stories.
What's the
The
storyline?
point I'm trying to say is that they will believe that story.
Yes.
And say to you that story is profound and it's true and it's da 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 da, and tell you that because you believe the Bible, that you are very simple.
Right, but believe it, with the Avatar, and from what I remember, is that the person was lame, and then he had powers.
No,
When
I
he
didn't
goes-
see the movie. No, the
No,
reason
that's
I
what I'm
brought
saying,
up,
and it's
I haven't
interesting.
seen that movie. The reason I brought that movie
Yeah, but all
up
of the movies are
was
interesting.
because
Same thing.
I remember I have this friend. She's an atheist. She's communist. She's from Cuba, so. And she went to watch the movie, and she came up. She said, "Desiree, you gotta go watch this movie because it's so." I'm like, "I'm not gonna go watch
They
that
call
movie.
you
That's
Desiree?
garbage." And she was like, "That movie was so good. I had to go back and watch that movie a second time because that movie explained so much stuff to me." And I said to her, "That's because you don't read the Bible."
It's explained a lot. As I say, remember, a lot of the original comic book authors were Jewish.
We're Jewish, yep,
They were Jewish, and so they already had the biblical narrative in their mind.
yep.
So they impose it on
A
every
counter-narrative,
every
yes.
single cartoon, not cartoon, but comic that they
Comic.
wrote. They impose the biblical narrative. Yeah,
And
they were
a lot
Jewish.
of times,
A lot of them
'cause
were Jewish, right?
remember Superman,
So they already knew the biblical narrative. So that's why somebody out from outer space, they
Yes.
come to Earth, they're trying to save Earthling, somebody trying to destroy Earth. It's always
Remember,
what they teach.
Superman was this
was Jesus.
baby.
He was able to
that-
walk
that-
on water.
That fell like,
He had superpowers, and they said, and that was created by the Jews to take away from the deity of Christ.
Right. So it was that counter narrative that was being put out. So I'm gonna still finish this, but
Go finish. I'm sorry.
Just
You're blowing
just-
me away, man. Keep it up. Keep going.
No, but it's interesting because I say I've seen because of that. Every time I see like one of those things, I just click it and watch a preview, and I'll be like, man, that's some overt, because one of them even had the Holy Spirit in it. It was Tor or what? Anyhow, let's keep going. So the spiritualism, the stealthy and rapid progress of the papal power. Now remember, when she wrote this, the papal power had no power in America. As a matter of fact, most people don't understand why Ellen G. White don't talk a lot about the papacy, because at the time he had that wound.
right.
In her
Until
time, the
1929,
problem that
yeah.
they were having was not with the papists. They were having a problem with the Protestant. Think about now,
Protestant church.
in our time, the papists have power.
Yes.
They have schools.
Yep.
They have, how many people on the Supreme Court bench?
6.
6. That's so
Six.
crazy in a Protestant
6.
nation. Anyhow, they have all of this power that then they didn't have. So that's telling you that what this statement is, most of it is already fulfilled. Already fulfilled. Because
Done.
when she was talking about, there was no such thing as no papists and no Supreme Court. There was no papists running for any office, major office at the president in America until JFK.
100 years later, perhaps.
And so that's what I tell you. And so what we're talking about here, what we see happening, they don't want to talk about that. They only want to talk about a spiritual battle. But this battle is not just a spiritual battle. Yeah, it's spiritual in a sense, but these people are trying to take over the government because they want to pass rules. And let me just finish reading this last line. And all will be unmasked. By these solemn warnings, people will be stirred. Thousands upon thousands will listen who have never heard words like these. In amazement, they hear the testimony that Babylon is the church fallen because of her errors and sins, because of her rejection of the truth sent to her from heaven. As the people go to their former teachers with the eager inquiry, are these things so? The minister presented them fable, prophesied, smooth things, to soothe their fear and quiet their awakening conscience. But since many refuse to be satisfied with the mere authority of men and demand plain, thus says the Lord, the popular ministry, like the Pharisees of old, filled with anger as the authorities question, will denounce the message as of Satan and stir the sin-loving multitude to revile and persecute those who proclaim it. That's a spiritual battle right there described. not what they're talking about. The spiritual battle is your life and my life will be on the line for this. Go ahead and just say that point. I'm going to see if I can find that last thing, and then we close right here.
No, just what popped in my mind is the fact that when we in society today look at what's going on around us, we are so blinded by stuff. And I just look at my stuff, even though it's a Bible game. We're so blinded, we're so occupied with stuff that we lose sight of what's happening there, what's important. And a lot of times people, even in the church, you mentioned that he was in the church, a lot of people in the church, they're more concerned about jumping up.
Like frogs.
Like frogs.
Say it like that.
Than learning prophecy.
They're jumping like frogs.
They're more concerned about jumping like frogs. And they're like, oh, your church is, oh, because y'all are born in there because y'all jump like frogs. Y'all don't jump like frogs. I went to the church and you should have seen it. Oh, my goodness. We had a good time. They were praising the Lord. But what did you learn? Learn?
You didn't go to learn?
I didn't go to learn.
But remember, Pastor Grubb talked about that. Was it this morning where you said people go to church for different reasons?
Yeah, different reasons. Some people just go
They came to church because we brought them, pretty much. Until they come to an age where they get to choose. Right now, we can only say it's because we brought them. Other people came to get peace, like you said. So they could be here physically present, but not mentally connected.
All right, I'm going to read this thing to close, right? Because there's much we can do on this.
The shame of it is, it's not just the kids. You got adults in here who are not connected. you got this stuff going on, and you ask anybody, if I say, I'll give anybody $1,000, if you break down and give me the 10 most important points of the sermon, I'm sure no one other than a few in the front, I mean in the back, I'm sure, give me 10 points.
I just keep preaching. Let me read this last one. This is written in 1899, and it's a General Conference manuscript, and it's an untitled manuscript, and it's found also in manuscript release, page 114. Very important statement, because I want to show, there's more statements I can show like that. In another time, I'm going to deal with this subject again, to show that we're not talking about the end time, no physical battle. Notice here, notice the country that she point to. In India, China, America, and in India, China, Russia, and cities of America, thousands of men and women are dying of starvation. The moneyed men, because they have the power, control the market. They purchase at a low rate all they can obtain and then sell at greatly increased prices. This means starvation for the poorer classes and will result in what? Civil war. Right, 1888, that was after the Civil War. Notice here, there will be a time of trouble such as never was since there was a nation. What is it talking about? End time? She said this is going to be something happening at the end time. What are we gearing up to? I'm going to get more. And at that time, Michael shall stand, which is one of the texts I wanted to read, but I'll skip it for now. That great prince was standing for the children of the people. And there shall be a time of trouble as such as never was since there was a nation, even to the same time, and at that time thy people shall be delivered, everyone that shall be found written in the book. Many shall be purified and made white and tried, but the wicked shall do wicked, and none of the wicked shall understand, but the wise shall understand. Notice she ties the end time in Daniel 11 and the time of trouble talk about in Matthew 24 to what's going on in these 4 countries, and say it will be civil war. What kind of war? She's not talking about no spiritual war. They're talking about. They're talking about a civil war. Actual war. Because why? Now, notice the 4 countries that she's talking about are the 4 countries that are the most egregious. 100 and something years later for the spread between the rich and the poor.
And it's getting worse. It's gotten worse.
I mean, you can't make this stuff up. 100 and something years, she said, look, the 4 countries. India, which is known for what they call the caste system. China, which is known to this day, have hundreds of millions of people living in dire poverty while they have enough money to lend to America. Makes no sense. Russia, which is known for its oligarchs, right, and all the type of mafia business that they go up in while there's so much poor in Russia, and the cities of the United States. Who lives in the cities of the United States? Come on, brothers and sisters. Who lives in the cities? Right? What's going on? Who's starving in American cities? Ain't no. It's the people who are poor. It's mainly the black people. You see, it's this still oppression that's still going on. When I read recently, I was looking at doing a piece on the blacks have less value in the thousands than in the time of Martin Luther King Jr. Yeah. Right now. Yeah. Blacks have gotten poorer as a family, per family, than when Martin Luther King walked the face of the planet. Yep. Right? It shouldn't be. Instead of going forward, they've gone backwards. And it's primarily in the black communities. And notice here, she doesn't say it's just spiritual warfare, as I say. Just spiritual warfare. I don't know where to get this spiritual warfare thing. There's no such thing as that. Every warfare in the Bible always ended in war. Yeah. There's no, you know what I'm saying? Cain and Abel, the first war. How did it end?
But even if, sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
Before it becomes it's a.
In the spiritual.
Sure,
right,
but again,
yes.
he said the statement it was there will be no military war. That make no sense because you normally start your war in your mind.
In the mind. Yeah.
And then it spills out in the hand.
Manifest, right.
And somebody's going to pay. Yeah. It goes to physical. It doesn't just stay there as spiritual warfare. Right. And that's what I say. But the reason I really believe why they do that is because they don't want to say the real what's going on in America.
But that's wrong.
They're trying to avoid talk about the sins of the nation.
Because
and I believe that's what it is. Over the years, I've dealt with these people. I've talked with them. I've been to their seminars. I listen to them talk, and they do not want to talk about the oppression that's going on. Because the problem is, and here's the thing, and many people have said, this we have not seen this. The only time we've seen it came close to becoming a problem was in the last crash, 2008, where they started to do the protests against the Wall Street. You remember?
Yes.
Occupy Wall Street.
The 1%.
Occupy Wall, and then it went quiet.
But again, preacher, they said there's another crash coming. That's what they say. And then the rich now have given themselves that tax cut. And now the average person is getting angry that, hey, at least I was trying to send my kid to school. And look at the news stories that come around. My kid studied hard, gave up stuff, and all of a sudden, he tried to get into one of those schools.
Oh, yeah.
And then now, because you are making $2-3 million,
that's
boy,
the answer for her. Who took
2 or 3?
Who taking the
your
place?
It's the rich people.
Yes. 2 or 3 million.
You that it's the immigrants taking the place, but they're the ones that took.
They're the ones.
Because they're not working for it.
No, right. They're not working for it. And now, all of a sudden.
That's what I'm saying. All of this is coming to light.
And it's come and it's being revealed. So I saw the amount of students that were upset on the news. The revolution will be televised.
But they said this man, through this person, 800 students got into colleges. Like 800 students is not a little bit of people.
For the click at $500,000 to $1 million. It's a lot of money.
Yes.
So notice again, China,
India,
Russia, and whatever, those are the main, and in America, citizens of America. And you look at it and she says it will be a time of trouble and it will result in civil war. Now, what Andrew I predicted, she says that after the pass of the National Son Law, she says America will result in national ruin. They don't want to talk about it because they say, oh no, it's not going to be any battle, it's going to be just spiritual battle. No, it's going to end in national ruin. And as we look at what's happening, we can see real clearly that this is, that's AL. Sorry, but go ahead. Just any closing thoughts.
Yeah, but the Sunday law, like you said, but it's already leading into national ruin because those who are more conscious and aware are saying, now I'm being told because of the tariffs, they're not going to buy my grain. They're not going to buy my stuff in the future.
Who's going to get hit again? Same poor farmers.
Same poor
farmers. The big ones are going to get us hit.
You know, I believe in him.
The big one got some subsidies anyway.
Look at GM closing all his plants.
Yes.
Who getting hit again?
The
American workers.
The American worker.
The American workers. Notice this statement. This is a cut from manuscript release, page 51, 1899. With rapid steps, we are approaching this period when Protestant churches shall unite with the secular power. Notice here, she combine both. She never separate them. To sustain a false religion for opposing which their ancestors endured the fiercest persecution. Then will the people's Sabbath be enforced by the combined authority of the church and state. There will be a national apostasy which will end only in what? National ruin. It's not what they're talking about. They're trying to make it so, oh no, it's just, we're just going to be here and there's going to be a spiritual battle and Jesus is going to come and take us home. No, it's going to end because you see what it is that, and here's the irony about America. America is the most gun-owning country in the world. So when she says ending national ruin, she said it was going to be civil war. She used the word civil war, national ruin, it's going to be war. Those are the terms when they're talking, oh no, it's like we're going to preach, this person preach, that person preach, and then we're just preaching. We have a preach-a-thon. It's a preach-off.
But preacher, let me ask the question. Do you notice when they had shut down the government for a war? And
to stop the immigrants.
To stop the immigrants.
The immigrants not
yeah, if we leave in the immigrants, but watch how they treated, Fox News commentators treated their president, calling him spineless because he said, this is not working. And he had to at least somebody, the people around him, I know it wasn't him, who said, this is not working, buddy. You know, people are hurting. But yet instead of saying, you know what, yeah, this is not working, but they were so closed-minded that they called him names and turned on him like that. Watch what's going to happen when these same individuals turn against the leadership when they start seeing things don't go their way.
And that's the problem.
That's going to be the
problem.
problem.
And that's why I say what they're predicting when they're talking about this is going to happen, they don't understand what it is that, yeah, the people will be fooled to do certain things, but when they realize it's not working, it's not going to make them better. If you build a wall, as I say you should build at least 2 or 3 walls. I really want the president to build a wall just to prove the point. Yeah. It's not going to make the average American better because what is the wall going to do to put money in our pocket? Nothing. Okay, so these Mexicans and people from Guatemala, Central America coming over. Okay, what do any American want their jobs? The jobs they're taking? No.
Picking fruit.
Who want those jobs? And unless you raise the minimum wage. You know what I'm saying? Unless you raise the minimum wage, the Americans don't want that job.
But that's the hardest job.
If you block those jobs and block the Mexicans and whatever from coming get those jobs, it's going to make America great again. How is that going to make America great again?
Well, if you like high food prices.
High food
prices. That's what's going to happen.
And that's what's
going to
happen.
Higher food prices.
Because
as I say, I already buy food at this higher price anyhow. It's just going to get higher. That's all it's going to be. So there's more we can see on that, but we're going to stop there. But I wanted to address that. The only other thing that, we could just keep going. I don't want to keep going. I think the point is well taken.
Amen.
Next time I come out, we'll do more in this line because this is not going to get better.
No.
Because what it is, that people really believe that if you block the immigrants, if you cut all the social benefits, if you do all these things, it will make America great. It doesn't even work personally. How do you make yourself better? Make more money. Save more. You know, you're not going to make more money by start going after your neighbor and try to make your neighbor fail. You're going to try to make yourself succeed.
Preacher, I've already heard businessmen from business saying the tax cuts to our corporation that are permanent were fantastic for us, but it's not helping anybody else. No. It's just helping me personally. And one guy with conscience was on the news saying, it's not trickling down. It just made me richer.
It's made him richer. Just put more money into his pocket and then put less money into the coffers of the government. Right. Because the aim of the group that passed it, their aim was always, because, you know, what it is to me, they're making America a third world nation. So somebody said, what is a third world nation? In my eyes, what a third world nation is, I just came back from one, is your business is making money, but they don't pay any taxes into school, public education. They don't pay any taxes for the hospital, for the healthcare. They don't pay any taxes for any social program, and they don't pay no taxes for the upkeep of the infrastructure. That's a third world nation. You take those 4 things and probably add 1 or 2 more, and that's a third world nation. A third world nation, what people call a third world nation is not what they think it is. Because what is make a third world, like I just came up from Jamaica for the funeral, my dad's funeral. And when I look around, I say the only thing that makes this a third world nation is that all the big money businesses doesn't pay taxes into the system. Yep. So there's no money paid into the public school, no money paid to hospitals. If you get injured and you're in tourist in Jamaica, they can bring you to a private hospital and fly you out to Florida.
Right. Get them out of here quick.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Like, what's the point?
And the rich who have the means. Right.
And that to me is a third world nation. America is not better than any other nation. It's just simply the Americans have gone abroad, convinced these rich people that don't build the country up, take all the money you can off the top. Yep. So what they have done now is convince our government and the politicians to do the same in America, letting out the rich people pay into the system, kill the public school, do voucher program, do private school, don't put into the social system. Okay, so you do that, then what you do, you're really creating a third world nation where you have to be insulated by yourself. I have to buy and get my own gun. I don't need no police. Right. I have to get my own. So let me tell you, when you go to Jamaica, I can't believe since the last few years, the amount of security companies have popped up. Because now everybody have money, have to hire a private security guard.
Yep. Even visitors with money have to get the private security guards.
That's right. Because you can't move around freely. Because why? Because there's no security apparatus that is really worth its dime. That's a third world nation, and that's what they're trying to do in America. And the problem is that's why it's going to lead to whatever, because at least in America, if I can go to public school,
you have a chance.
I have a chance where, as long as the public school is reasonable to any other school with people with money, I have a chance to make it. So they say, no, let's say cut off affirmative action. Yep. So they cut off anybody from getting in that is poor. They want to cut all these things. And now, if you're poor, you're going to stay poor. That's India. That's India. China.
That's a caste system.
That's Russia.
That's Russia.
And what they're trying to do in America is make America like those countries, where the rich stay rich. And this thing that happened with the student loan business, the student entry business, all the proof is that a rich person can get, without hard work for these kids, they can pay to get into these big universities. Yep. And it's not by merit. It's not by their hard work. And that's what the rich want to do in America. But the problem is, and I can show you more quotation, I will show more in the future, where Andrew White said, this is going to end in a bloodbath, because what it is, the poor is not going to take it forever. There's going to be a general hate for the rich. And I think it was ironic. When it happened, I said to everybody at church, I said, look, this is weird because it's predicted, and look, we have the richest ever leadership table, whatever you call it, what do you call that table? The
cabinet, president's
cabinet. Ever assembled in the world. Yeah. I can't. These people, the cabinet alone was worth more than, say, that I think 40% of America. Yep. Just the people at the table sitting with Trump, the total amount of money they own is more than, I think, 40% of America. And they're not making the decision. These are the greediest people in the world, and you put them in leadership, and they make the decision. What the decision was, give tax break to us.
Yeah, give us a tax break.
Give tax break to us who have so much money. And I was like, why are they doing this? Because what the Bible predicts is that said it's going to be a general hate for the rich. And this Trump administration going to make it happen. That's my prediction.
It's already done.
Because what he's going to do is, because no, we haven't seen it yet. Because all this stuff he's been doing,
it's coming.
The results are not coming in yet.
Yeah.
This result is still on the way. And when the results come, what's going to happen is that the poor people are going to become poorer, and middle class is going to become poorer, and there's going to be a problem because there's not going to be a way to, you can't resuscitate the system. There's a certain point you can go where you can get so greedy that you're not going to be able to pull back from it. And that's what I believe is going to happen. And that's what Andrew White and the Bible says is going to become a problem because the rich, they're going to get, it's out of control. Look, South Africa, you go online and search South Africa. The South Africans who have money have to have bodyguards everywhere they go.
Everywhere.
They have to live in gated communities. They can't walk free. because they're so rich and the rest of the community is so poor. Why would these crazy rich people want to be so rich? I don't understand why. You're not safe. Yeah, but boy, Satan is, but
Say that
Satan has
again.
deceived them. Like, because, you know, I always remember they say you don't want to have the biggest house in the community.
No. Never.
But worse, you don't want to have the biggest house in a slum.
Yeah.
You have this mansion and all around you slum. You know where it's like that? India.
India, yeah.
India is something else to see. They'll have a slum right across the road, and right here is a multi-million-dollar mansion. I'm like, I would be so scared because you have to have all this security. You know, I must say this last thing here. Right now in Jamaica, you know what the rich people have to do? They have to constantly change bodyguards.
Right.
They can't even trust their
'Cause
own
they
They
bodyguard.
can't trust the bodyguards.
Right.
So the moment the bodyguard understand their movement, guess what they have to do? Get a new one. Because if they understand the movement too much, they're dead.
And the bodyguards see that these people they're rich and they're not, a lot of them are not nice. Suffering, and they don't want to pay the bodyguards.
So they constantly have to switch out, do new companies, do new. And you live in fear. You get up every day, you're living in fear because you know that say even this guy here, you ain't paying him nothing. Pastor, what?
Oh.
Quran.
Quran.
Close
Yeah,
this
Quran.
out. We just sing a song and then we close. In number. Thanks very much. God bless everyone.
Amen. Let us stand as we turn to our closing song, number 56. The Day Thou Gavest.
The day thou givest, Lord, is ended. The darkness falls at thy behest. To thee a morning hymns ascended. Thy praise shall hallow now our rest. We thank thee that thy church on sleeping while earth rolls onward into light. Through all the world her watch is keeping and rest not now by day or night. As o'er each continent and island adorned, what on another day the voice of praise never silent, nor die the strains of praise away. So be it, Lord, thy throne shall never, like earth's proud empires, pass away. Thy kingdom stands and grows forever, till all thy creatures own thy sway.
Let us pray. Dear kind and heavenly Father, I thank you, dear Lord, for the blessings of the Sabbath, for the blessings of this service, for the blessings of Pastor Grubb. Help us, Lord, that we may be able to become ready for what's to come. Be with those who are leaving, give them safe travel and mercies. Be with those who are watching online, that they will receive the blessings that we have also received. I thank you, dear Lord, for hearing and answering our prayers. This I ask in your Son's name. Amen.